What's up, fellow Manwa junkies? Manwa Today is back. Today we're popping the seal on an absolute banger, the Shepherd Wizard. This video is best served while you're eating, taking a dump, or pretending to work. You know the drill. Let's get it. Sunlight filters through the village trees, illuminating a small boy wielding a wooden stick with fierce determination. I'm a wizard. He lunges at a girl who dodges his clumsy strike while laughing at his childish display of pretend combat. Eat my magic, you monster. I'm a monster. I eat wizards. The stick connects with a soft thud against her forehead, leaving the boy stunned by his own unexpected success. He stares at his hands, his excitement quickly turning into confusion as he questions the reality of his victory. How can you hit me for real? Monsters are supposed to lose to wizards. Rabbus watches the scene from afar, his weathered face creasing into a gentle, knowing smile. In that case, I want to be a wizard too. No, that's not fair, ho-ho. Rabbus steps forward into the light, his presence commanding immediate attention from the playful children gathered nearby. You sure are energetic in the morning, little ones. Grandpa Rabbus. The boy looks up, his eyes filled with a desperate longing to understand the secrets of magical power. What do I need to do to become a wizard? You can't become one just because you want to. Rabbus smiles gently and begins to tell the children about the origin of wizards, as well as the source of the world's power. Wizards are the apex of humanity, ones who rule over humans from the highest hierarchies. They're nobles and knights who inherited the ability to use mysterious powers from our ancestors. Rabbus sighs, his voice heavy with the weight of reality as he shatters the dreams of the young ones. So, unfortunately, you too can't become wizards. Elder, how could you say something like that to children? A villager approaches, his brow furrowed with deep concern as he whispers urgent news to the aging man. Well, that's that. Is it true? What is? The villager points toward the forest, his trembling hands conveying the terror that has gripped the entire local community. I heard a monster appeared. Rabbus stiffens, the air around him growing cold as he confirms the grim rumors circulating through the village. It's true. They say Rop came across it at the entrance last night. Oh no. Darkness coalesces into a terrifying, predatory shape, its eyes glowing with a malevolent hunger that chills the very soul. They said its whole body was covered in a pitch-black shadow, and it was a leopard as big as a house. A woman pulls the girl close, shielding her from the harsh truth while offering words of hollow, desperate comfort. But don't worry. The village chief went to the city to request a wizard. Hope flickers in the villagers' eyes as they cling to the promise of a savior arriving to end this. He'll definitely bring a wizard back, and the monster will be subjugated. That's a relief. Rabbus places a heavy hand on the girl's head, his gaze stern as he issues a final, non-negotiable warning. You heard that, right? For the time being, you cannot go into the forest. He grips his wooden staff, the wood groaning under the pressure of his grip as he emphasizes the danger. You all should be careful as well. Without a wizard, killing a monster is close to impossible. The villager glances toward the horizon, his thoughts drifting to the one person who might defy these grim odds. Do all the villagers know? Of course. Then what about him? Who? Rolling hills stretch toward the sky, bathed in the soft, golden glow of a calm and peaceful morning. The shepherd on Hisarl Hill. Tyran lies amidst the tall grass, his eyes closed as he enjoys the gentle breeze brushing against his skin. The shepherd, Tyran. He opens his eyes, staring blankly at the vast, empty expanse of the blue sky above the quiet meadow. Tyran sighs, his restlessness growing as he watches the sheep graze aimlessly in the endless, unchanging green landscape. This is Suo boring. He shifts his position, his boredom manifesting as a deep, weary lethargy that clings to his every movement. At that rate, I'm going to forget how to talk. Rabbus stands over him, his shadow falling across Tyran like a dark omen on this otherwise bright day. Pathetic brat. The elder glares down, his frustration evident in the sharp, demanding tone he uses to address the lazy shepherd. The sun hasn't even started to set, and you're already slacking off. Tyran remains unmoved, his calm demeanor serving only to further irritate the man standing above him in the field. You're blocking the sunlight. Move, you have no manners. He chuckles softly, a mocking glint in his eyes as he references their long and complicated history together. Are you still holding on to that incident from back then? That incident. Rabbus scoffs, his irritation simmering as he recalls the petty grievances that have defined their strained, difficult relationship. Ah, you mean when my mother died, and you tried to quietly turn the sheep into shared property? Ahem. Tyran sits up, his movements fluid and precise as he dismisses the elder's complaints with a cold, sharp indifference. Yeah, if that's what you mean, then yes. I'm not generous enough to share my mother's inheritance, you know. Rabus trembles with rage, his face reddening as he shouts at the young man who refuses to yield. We're not close enough to be asking how we're doing, so if you came here, say what you want and get lost. You little brat. Tyran narrows his eyes, a sudden shift in his aura signaling that the playful banter has reached its end. What? Rabus steadies his breathing, the urgency of his mission overriding his personal disdain for the man before him. A monster has appeared. A monster. He strokes the wool of a sheep, his touch gentle as he shares the terrifying news with Tyran. They say it's a leopard as big as a house. Rop found it. I'm on my way back after telling the villagers. Tyran stands up, his interest piqued by the mention of a creature that could threaten his peaceful, isolated existence. That's a serious problem. You're not scared, even though you're the most likely target around here. Rabus turns to leave, his back stiff as he delivers a final warning to the young man he protects. I don't know what kind of guts you've got. Anyway, the village chief went to the city to request a wizard, so be careful. Tyran watches him walk away, a knowing smirk playing on his lips as he sees through the elder's facade. I came because I was worried about you. You're not very honest. He calls out, his voice echoing across the hill as he needles the departing man one last time. Why can't you just say you came because you were worried about the sheep, not me? You. Tyran turns his back, his expression hardening as he dismisses the elder's presence with a wave of his hand. Old man, if you're done talking, get lost already. Rabus angrily turns his back and leaves. Tyran breathes in the air, his nose wrinkling as he insults the man who just left his sight. Your breath stinks so bad my nose is going to rot. Tyran looks toward the distant forest, his mind racing with thoughts of the creatures that dwell within the shadows. Monsters. He observes the sheep, his eyes narrowing as he contemplates the dark, magical nature of the beast described earlier. Beasts that wield mysterious power and magic. If humans have wizards, then beasts have monsters. Tyran begins walking toward the woods, his steps purposeful as he prepares to encounter the unknown for the first time. A wizard is coming to a backwater village because of a monster, so I finally get to see a wizard in person. He considers the reality of the situation, his skepticism tempering his excitement as he approaches the dense, dark forest. But if it's a rural village chief calling them, there's a good chance they won't be anything special, even if they are a wizard. Tyran pauses, his curiosity driving him forward despite the risks he knows he might face in the coming hours. Still, I want to see one. Just how strong are they? He stops abruptly, his senses sharpening as a foul, metallic scent drifts through the air and hits him hard. This smell. Tyran looks toward the trees, his jaw set as he identifies the source of the overwhelming, sickening odor. It's blood. The sun dips below the horizon, casting long, blood-red shadows across the forest path as night begins to fall. He walks deeper into the woods, his boots crunching on the dry leaves as he follows the trail of scent. Tyran stops, his eyes scanning the dark surroundings for any sign of the violence that occurred in this place. I'm sure it was this way. He finds the body of the elder, his eyes widening as he realizes the horrific fate that has befallen Rabus. Rabus. Tyran kneels beside the fallen man, his voice a low whisper as he acknowledges the grim reality of the situation. He told me to be careful, yet goes in first. So the source of the blood smell was Rabus. He examines the wounds, his analytical mind recognizing the unnatural, savage precision of the damage inflicted on the body. This isn't a wound an ordinary wild animal could make. Tyran stands, his gaze shifting toward the darkness as he confirms the presence of the beast he was warned about. It has to be the monster. He senses a shift in the air, his instincts screaming that he is no longer alone in the dark forest. A massive, clawed foot emerges from the shadows, its size and power shaking the very ground beneath Tyran's feet. The monster steps into the clearing, its black form radiating a suffocating, malevolent pressure that makes the air feel heavy. Tyran stares up at the beast, his posture calm despite the overwhelming danger that now stands right before him. Meanwhile, in a small house in the village, how strong is a monster? A young boy sits at a table, his face filled with innocent wonder as he asks about the world's dangers. Is it true even adults can't beat it? They are insanely strong. The boy's father speaks, his voice trembling as he tries to explain the terrifying reality of the monsters to the boy. If ordinary adults like me rush it, you won't even be able to collect my bones. So even you can't beat it." He places a plate down, his hands shaking slightly as he tries to maintain a facade of calm for them. "Then what will happen to our village now? Don't worry." The father smiles, his eyes reflecting a desperate hope that he tries to instill in the young boy's heart. "The village chief will bring a wizard. The wizard will subjugate the monster." The boy looks up, his eyes wide with a mixture of fear and hope as he seeks reassurance from him. "The wizard won't lose, right? The wizard will punish the monster, right?" He nods, his expression firm as he reinforces the legend of the wizard's absolute and overwhelming power over all. "Of course. They're great beings born with the power of magic. They'll kill the monster with a single word." The monster roars, its jaws opening wide to reveal teeth that could crush stone as easily as bone or flesh. Tyran looks at the beast, his lips curling into a cold, dangerous smile as he prepares to face it. He raises his hand, his voice cutting through the silence of the forest with a command of absolute lethal intent. "Die." The beast recoils, its eyes flashing with confusion as it sees Tyran only shouted and did nothing else. Tyran stands tall, his body glowing with a faint, pulsing aura that marks him as a wielder of power. He frowns, his eyes scanning the beast as he realizes his initial attack had no effect on the beast. Not working. The monster lunges, its massive form crashing through the trees as it launches a counterattack with terrifying raw speed. Tyran shouts, his voice booming through the forest as he attempts to halt the momentum of the charging, savage beast. Stop. The monster is startled again and leaps up, the ground tearing apart under its heavy paws as it fights the invisible force. He watches the beast struggle, his mind racing as he processes the failure of his previous, powerful magical command. "I knew killing it wouldn't work, but it can't even be stopped." The monster breaks free, its claws raking the earth as it launches itself toward Tyran with renewed, hungry fury. It growls, its eyes burning with a dark, chaotic energy that threatens to consume everything in its immediate path. Tyran dives to the side, his movements agile as he narrowly avoids the crushing weight of the beast's deadly attack. He lands, his eyes fixed on the monster as he decides on a new, more effective strategy to survive. In that case, Tyran reaches into his pouch, his fingers closing around a stone as he prepares to use his unique abilities. He pulls out something that looks like a slingshot string. A shepherd should do what a shepherd does. The monster charges again, its body a blur of shadow and teeth as it closes the distance between them. Tyran grips the stone, his magic infusing the rock with an unnatural, diamond-like density that makes it glow brightly. Harden. He swings his hand, the air whistling as he accelerates the stone toward the beast with incredible, lethal velocity. Tyran focuses, his eyes turning into golden orbs as he pushes his magic to the very limit of endurance. Become faster. The stone streaks through the air, a glowing trail of light marking its path as it spins toward the target. He plants his feet, his posture shifting as he prepares for the impact that will decide the outcome of this. Tyran screams, his voice filled with a primal intensity as he guides the projectile toward the monster's vulnerable head. Pierce through. The stone drills into the air, the magical energy surrounding it creating a vortex that tears through the forest canopy. It strikes the beast, the sound of impact echoing like a thunderclap across the dark and silent, terrified woods. The monster staggers, its momentum shattered as the projectile tears through its thick, shadowy hide with ease and speed. Blood sprays across the clearing, the dark liquid painting the ground. But no, it seems the attack missed. The stone flew past the magical beast's head in an instant. The magical beast seized the opportunity and immediately lunged at Tyran. There was something very strange about Tyran. He was calm as if he knew the beast's actions beforehand. The scene was truly exhilarating. Tyran smiles, his eyes cold as he looks at the monster threatening to devour him. "I'm aiming." From above, the stone that seemed to have missed its target earlier was returning with terrifying speed, aimed directly at the beast's head. Everything was part of Tyran's calculations. Tyran raises his hand, his magic swirling around him as he prepares to finish the job once and for all. For the head. He strikes, the final blow landing with a sickening crunch that ends the monster's life in a single moment. The stone embeds itself into the skull, the magical energy dissipating as the beast finally goes completely and utterly still. Tyran exhales, his body relaxing as the adrenaline of the fight begins to fade into a weary, heavy exhaustion. He looks at his hands, his voice a quiet murmur as he acknowledges the novelty of his own lethal power. "This is my first time using it on a monster." Tyran kicks the body, his face twisted in a look of mild annoyance as he considers the cleanup required now. "Should I toss it into some valley or something?" Tusk. The moon rises, casting a pale, silver light over the forest as he begins the long walk back home. "Those village bastards sure put me to work." Golden sunlight bathes the rugged mountain path where Tyran stands, his clothes stained with the remnants of battle. All that for those townsfolk. He stares into the distance, his eyes reflecting a deep hidden power that burns with an ancient, restless intensity. "I am a wizard." Memories of a humble wooden cabin surface, where he first discovered the strange, invisible currents flowing through his small hands. 8 years ago, when I was 10. Tyran laughs, his youthful face beaming as he manipulates the furniture with a flick of his wrist, oblivious to danger. "Look, the logs are flying." The woman stands frozen in the doorway, her silhouette framed by the hearth's glow as she witnesses the impossible display. "Mom." He gestures wildly, sending kitchen utensils dancing through the air, his excitement echoing through the quiet, rustic living space. "I can make fire, and I can make wind." She rushes forward, her eyes wide with sudden, sharp terror as she forcefully grabs his small, trembling shoulders. "Stop it." Tyran watches in silence as she snatches the floating log from the air, her movements frantic and filled with dread. "Mom." She kneels before him, her hands trembling as she pulls him close, her gaze locking onto his with desperate intensity. "Tyran, come and have a chat with your mother." He nods slowly, feeling the weight of her fear pressing down on him, his own excitement fading into cold curiosity. "Yes." She points toward the scattered objects, her voice a low, urgent whisper that cuts through the heavy, stagnant cabin air. "Then promise me this. Promise that you won't use this power from now on." Tyran tilts his head, his brow furrowing as he struggles to understand the sudden, inexplicable prohibition of his own gifts. "Why?" He listens intently, his eyes narrowing as she begins to unravel the dark, complex hierarchy of their fractured, dangerous world. "I remember." She explains the divide, her words painting a picture of gods and men, of bloodlines that dictate one's entire existence. "They call the people who wield this special power wizards, whether they are nobles or knights. But nobles and knights are inherently different." Tyran grips his wooden staff, the smooth grain feeling cool against his palm as he acknowledges her grim, final warning. "Yes, you remember." She turns away, her back to him, as she prepares to deliver the truth that will define his lonely future. "That is why they differentiate nobles and knights even amongst wizards. I will tell you why you can't use this power, Tyran." He stands in the shadow of her presence, his heart sinking as she reveals the brutal reality of their lineage. "You inherited the powers of your father, a knight. There are many evil nobles outside this town, the nobles who treat knights as their slaves." She cups his face, her touch lingering as she forces him to look into her eyes one last time. "So remember this. Nobody can know that you are a wizard." Tyran stares at her, his throat tight as he realizes the magnitude of the burden he must carry alone. "You can promise me that, right?" Morning light streams into the small, lonely cabin, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the silence of his solitary life. 8 years have passed since then. I have continued to uphold the promise with my mother. He reaches for the heavy curtains, pulling them shut to seal himself away from the prying eyes of the world. The promise will not be broken. Tyran gazes out through a narrow gap, his expression unreadable as he watches the distant, forbidden horizon with cold indifference. "I have no desire to reveal myself as a wizard or to descend the mountain." The silence of the morning is shattered by a rhythmic, thunderous pounding that vibrates through the thick wooden walls. He turns toward the door, his eyes flashing with irritation as the unwanted intrusion breaks his carefully maintained, quiet solitude. "Tyran, come out." Tyran steps into the threshold, his posture relaxed yet ready, his gaze meeting the angry, sweating men waiting outside. The villagers crowd the entrance, their faces twisted with accusation and fear as they demand an answer from him. He lets out a long, weary sigh, his hand covering his mouth as he feigns a look of profound boredom. "So, you're saying I killed Rabbus?" Tyran remains perfectly still, his eyes cold as one of the men lunges forward to grab his collar aggressively. "Yes, how shameless of you." The man screams, his spittle flying as he levels a baseless, vitriolic accusation against the calm, composed young man. "You hurt that old man, Rabbus, and threw him out to be eaten by monsters. Tyran watches the man's grip, his thoughts racing as he calculates the exact moment to strike back with precision. He smiles faintly, a sharp, dangerous expression that makes the surrounding villagers flinch and step back in sudden hesitation. "I see why you want to frame me." "What?" Tyran points a finger at them, his voice calm and cutting as he dissects their cowardly, pathetic attempt at deflection. "The oldest man in the village died alone, instead of the young men who were too scared to fight the monster. I can see why you think this is the best way out of that." He stands his ground as the man bellows in rage, his fist swinging through the air with lethal, clumsy intent. Tyran ducks beneath the blow, his movements fluid and effortless as he prepares to unleash a hidden, devastating force. He focuses his will, the air around him shimmering with the sudden, sharp manifestation of his forbidden, ancient magical energy. Magic is convenient. Tyran strikes, his palm connecting with the man's chest in a burst of kinetic force that sends him flying backward. If I strongly wish for something, it happens at the cost of mana. He whispers a command, his voice barely audible over the wind as the remaining villagers collapse in sudden, forced submission. Fall over. Tyran watches them struggle to rise, his eyes devoid of pity as he maintains his absolute, iron-fisted control over them. "I don't need to start a fire. Just a little bit." He moves like a shadow, weaving through their frantic attacks while carefully restraining the full extent of his power. So that it's not obvious, Tyran twists the man's arm, his grip firm and unrelenting as he forces the weapon from his trembling, sweaty hands. Just enough for them not to die. He unleashes a flurry of strikes, his movements a blur of efficiency that leaves the men gasping on the grass. "I will dominate them." Tyran stands in the center of the chaos, his breath steady as he effortlessly disarms every single one of them. The wooden clubs fly into the sky, clattering uselessly against the ground as the fight ends in total, crushing defeat. He watches the men groan in pain, their bodies sprawled across the meadow like broken dolls in the morning sun. And like that, for 8 years, I have hidden the fact that I am a wizard. Tyran glances at the villagers approaching from the distance, his expression hardening as he realizes the trouble is far from over. "You should have used that strength for Rabba's funeral." He stares at the woman, his eyes cold as she stammers, her face pale with a mixture of shock and fear. "Are you here to fight too?" "And no, we." Tyran turns his back on them, his voice a low, dismissive command that leaves no room for further useless argument. "Came here to see you, Tyran. Take these idiots down with you." The cabin interior is quiet, the shadows lengthening as he paces across the floor, his mind churning with dark thoughts. He looks out the window, his expression thoughtful as he considers the inevitable, chaotic fallout of the morning's violent confrontation. It's going to be chaos in the town again. They're going to use this as an excuse to rip me off when I go to trade. Tyran sighs, his hand resting on the back of a chair as he contemplates the necessity of future, brutal negotiations. "Well, fine. I can beat them up until I get a fair deal." He closes his eyes, his brow furrowing as a sudden sharp knocking echoes through the cabin, interrupting his troubled thoughts. "I gave them a proper whooping, so they shouldn't be back for a..." Tyran clenches his fist, his knuckles white as the relentless, insistent pounding continues to vibrate through the sturdy wooden door. They must be insane. He throws the door open, his eyes flashing with raw, unfiltered killing intent as he prepares to face the intruder. "Who is it?" "Do you really want to?" Kjorn stands in the doorway, his rugged, scarred face illuminated by the harsh, unforgiving light of the afternoon sun. He bows slightly, his voice calm and polite, contrasting sharply with the tension radiating from the younger man before him. "Who are you?" "Excuse me. I thought I could ask for a favor in my travels, but I must have caught you at an inopportune moment." Tyran stares at him, his guard still high, as he assesses the stranger's intentions with a cold, analytical gaze. Kjorn smiles, a weary, genuine expression that softens the hard lines of his face as he gestures toward the village. "A traveler? Ah, no, I apologize. A few uninvited guests just came here moments ago." He listens to the stranger's words, his posture relaxing slightly as he recognizes the lack of malice in the man's tone. "My mother taught me manners, but was that proper enough? I never talked nicely to anyone in that pathetic town, so this feels awkward." Tyran observes the sword at the man's hip, his mind calculating the potential threat posed by such a well-armed visitor. "Anyway, a traveler with a sword in this sleepy old town." He steps back, gesturing for the stranger to enter, his curiosity piqued by the sudden, unexpected appearance of an outsider. If you're looking for an inn, come in. The table is set with simple, hearty food, the steam rising from the bowls to fill the room with warmth. Kjorn sits down, his eyes widening with genuine surprise as he surveys the modest meal laid out before him. We're not well off, so we don't have much. Oh, but this is a feast. Tyran watches him eat, his expression unreadable as he tries to gauge the true nature of this mysterious, wandering swordsman. You surprise me, though. You've never met someone from outside the town? That's right. He pours a drink, the liquid swirling in the mug as he listens to the man's story with quiet interest. I was born and raised on this hill, and have lived as a shepherd all this time. It's also rare for this small town to get tourists. Tyran takes a slow sip, his eyes fixed on the stranger as he detects a subtle underlying depth in his character. Interesting, huh? Kjorn chuckles, his gaze lingering on the young man with a look of quiet, respectful appraisal that catches him off guard. For someone who grew up here as a shepherd, you are quite well versed in manners. Your parents must have taught you well. He looks down at his plate, his voice softening as he recalls the faint, bittersweet memory of his departed mother. I learned from my mother, but she died a few years ago due to an illness. Kjorn nods solemnly, his expression filled with a gentle, empathetic understanding that transcends the boundaries of their brief, chance meeting. She raised a proud son like you, so I am sure she resides among the gods in a palace in the heavens. Tyran looks up, his eyes meeting the stranger's with a flicker of genuine gratitude for the man's kind, unexpected words. I want to thank you once again. I just live the way my mother taught me. He leans forward, his curiosity finally overcoming his natural, ingrained caution as he questions the man's true, hidden purpose. But what brings you all the way out to this country town? I was asked a favor. Tyran pauses, his heart skipping a beat as he realizes the potential danger hidden behind the man's simple, honest request. A favor? They were looking for someone to take care of a monster puma. He stares at the stranger, his resolve hardening as he decides to reveal the truth, his voice steady and cold. I am a wizard. Kjorn smiles, his eyes glinting with a sharp, knowing light as he confirms the identity he had been seeking all along. You must be the wizard our village elder talked about. That's right. He taps his chin, his expression thoughtful as he prepares to ask the question that has been burning in his mind. Can I ask a question now? Sure. Kjorn gestures toward the window, his voice low and serious, as he describes the supernatural presence he can clearly sense. I sense a monster in this area, but I don't see a monster. Tyran watches him closely, his pulse quickening as he realizes the man is far more perceptive and dangerous than he appeared. What's even weirder is that you know about the village elder and the monster, yet you seem calm and aren't running away. Kjorn leans in, his eyes narrowing as he challenges the young man's composure, his voice a low, gravelly, and threatening whisper. If the monster went for a human, it would be you. Aren't you scared? He stares at the stranger, his face a mask of cold, calculating intensity as he demands to know the man's true identity. Who are you? Tyran grips his hands, his knuckles white as he prepares to defend his secret with every ounce of his strength. Wizard. The room fades into a memory where his mother stands by the table, her face etched with a deep, sorrowful concern. Why can't anyone know that I'm a wizard? Because of the bad nobles. He listens to her explanation, his young face filled with confusion as he tries to grasp the gravity of her warning. Bad nobles. She kneels before him, her eyes burning with a fierce, protective love as she speaks of the world's cruel, hidden hierarchies. If nobles are shepherds like us, then knights are like the dogs that nobles keep. Tyran grips her hand, his heart aching as he hears the desperate, pleading tone in her voice, his own fear rising rapidly. I don't want that kind of life for you, Tyran. You want to keep living with your mom, right? Yes. She kisses his forehead, her touch a final, lingering blessing that seals his fate and binds him to his secret forever. Then remember this. Nobody can know that you are a wizard, especially other wizards. If they find out, they will separate us and turn you into their shepherd dog to be discarded at any moment. He stands in the dim light of the cabin, his expression resolute as he accepts the heavy, lonely burden of his existence. To avoid being found out as a wizard, Tyran looks at the stranger, his eyes sharp and dangerous as he realizes the man is a threat he must eliminate. He draws his blade, the steel gleaming with a cold, lethal light as he prepares to strike the final, decisive blow. You might have to kill people, The dim light of a wooden cabin flickers, casting long, dancing shadows across the worn, rustic floorboards. If it's to keep the fact that I'm a wizard from getting out, Kjorn sits rigidly at the table, his hand hovering near the hilt of his blade. I might have to kill my opponent. Tyran stares back with a calm, unblinking intensity, his presence filling the small space with an unspoken, heavy weight. So this is what it comes to. Tyran leans in, his eyes narrowing as he demands a response to the tension hanging in the air. Why can't you answer? Kjorn breaks the silence with a sudden, boisterous laugh, his shoulders relaxing as he leans back in his chair. If you make a face like that, it just makes my joke awkward. Tyran blinks, his expression shifting from defensive alertness to genuine confusion as he processes the sudden change in mood. A joke? Kjorn stands up, gesturing dismissively to clear the air between them while offering a polite, disarming smile. I'm sorry, I don't really have a good sense of humor. No, that's not it. I'm the one who should apologize. I think I flustered you. He continues, his voice steadying as he explains the misunderstanding with a relaxed, friendly demeanor. It's my first time hearing a wizard joke, so it caught me off guard. Your reaction was so entertaining that I took the teasing too far. Kjorn extends his hand across the table, his palm open in a gesture of peace and newfound camaraderie. Come to think of it, we still haven't introduced ourselves properly. Nice to meet you. He smiles warmly, the lines around his eyes deepening as he presents his name with simple, honest pride. I'm Kjorn, a wanderer. Tyran reaches out, his grip firm and steady as he clasps the hand offered in friendship. I'm sorry, I should have introduced myself first. Tyran completes the handshake, his posture softening as he reveals his identity to the man sitting before him. I'm Tyran, a shepherd. Warmth radiates from the hearth, illuminating the simple meal shared between the two men in the quiet room. I'm 18 years old this year, and I'll be 75 this year. Kjorn chuckles, his gaze lingering on his companion as he considers the vast difference in their ages. You really don't look that old. Wizards age more slowly than ordinary people, and they live longer. Tyran listens intently, his curiosity piqued by the life story of the man who chose to roam the world. How did you end up becoming a wanderer? Kjorn gestures toward the window, his eyes reflecting a lifetime of travel and the freedom of the open road. After serving the Arabian family for 60 years, I left. In my later years, I wanted to roam from place to place without settling down. Tyran smiles, feeling the rare comfort of a conversation that doesn't require masks or hidden agendas. That's pretty romantic. Kjorn grins, his rugged features softening as he finds a kindred spirit in the quiet, observant young man. Sharing a harmless conversation with a good person like this, Tyran leans back, the atmosphere in the room feeling lighter than it had in many long, lonely years. I didn't realize it could be this enjoyable. Moonlight spills through the window, signaling the passage of time as the night deepens into the early morning hours. Wow, it's already gotten this late. Kjorn rises from his seat, gathering his belongings while acknowledging the necessity of his departure from the cabin. You're right, I didn't even notice the sun coming up. I should get going. He places a coin on the table, the metallic clink echoing softly against the wood as he pays his dues. This is Arabian silver. It's the purest among silver coins, so it should more than cover the cost of the meal. Tyran nods, his expression appreciative as he watches the man prepare to step back out into the wilderness. I'll accept it gratefully. I hope your hunt goes smoothly. Don't act like we'll never see each other again. Kjorn pauses at the door, glancing back with a playful glint in his eyes before disappearing into the dark. I might come by a few more times to mooch off you on the way, you know. Sunlight bathes the rolling green hills, the morning breeze rustling through the leaves of the nearby ancient trees. Tyran stands in the pasture, the gentle bleating of the flock filling the serene, sun-drenched morning air. He calls out to the animals, his voice calm and melodic as he directs them toward the grazing fields. Gather. Tyran walks among the sheep, his staff tapping rhythmically against the soft earth as he tends to his daily duties. He reflects on the recent encounter, a small, thoughtful smile playing on his lips as he walks the fields. It's the first time I've met another wizard, but more than that, how long has it been since I had a conversation that felt this comfortable? Tyran reaches out to pat the head of a passing sheep, his touch gentle and filled with quiet affection. The ease and humor that naturally seeped into his way of speaking. More than any adult I've ever met in my life. Kjorn reappears at the cabin door at dusk, looking exhausted but satisfied as he drops his heavy burden. "I'm back again. He really was a good person." Tyran continues his patrol, his mind wandering back to the knight who defied his expectations of noble warriors. "I always thought knights were just emotionless hunting dogs used by arrogant nobles." Tyran stops, his brow furrowing as he contemplates the challenge of revealing his true nature to his new friend. "Anyway, how do I tell him?" The forest path is shrouded in thick, oppressive mist, the silence of the trees feeling heavy and unnatural. That there are no more monsters on Hisarl Hill. Kjorn halts, his hand dropping to his weapon as he senses something amiss in the thick, stagnant air. That's strange. He scans the clearing, his eyes tracking the signs of a recent struggle etched into the forest floor. There are traces of a battle, but I can't feel a monster's presence. Kjorn approaches a massive, scarred tree, his brow furrowing as he observes the lack of lingering magical energy. Was the monster already hunted? He wonders about the potential for other powerful individuals lurking within the quiet, unassuming mountain village. Who in the world hunted it? Did the village chief leave it to another wizard besides me? Kjorn sighs, his shoulders dropping as he decides to focus on the positive outcome of the situation. Either way, it's a relief. If someone killed the monster and made things safe, that's all that matters. He freezes, his instincts flaring as a sudden, overwhelming chill crawls up the back of his neck. Kjorn spins around, his reflexes sharp as he prepares to face a threat that has suddenly materialized nearby. A monstrous clawed hand emerges from the shadows, dripping with a thick, dark, and viscous magical substance. The creature lunges forward, its jagged teeth and glowing eyes revealing a terrifying, corrupted form of pure malice. Kjorn stares at the writhing, nightmarish beast, his breath hitching as he realizes the true nature of his foe. A monster's wraith. He stands his ground, his voice strained as he questions the origin of such a foul, unnatural creation. Who would do something like this? The wraith swings its massive limb, the air whistling as the attack tears through the dense forest canopy. Kjorn barely dodges the strike, his boots skidding across the dirt as he narrowly avoids being crushed instantly. He gasps for air, his mind racing to recall the dangerous properties of a monster left unpurified. If you don't absorb or disperse the mana from a dead monster's corpse, the monster turns into a wraith like this. A wizard who hunts monsters couldn't possibly not know that. Kjorn leaps into the air, his body glowing with a faint, golden aura as he prepares a counterattack. He descends toward the beast, his eyes narrowed in focus as he analyzes the implications of the wraith's existence. So the one who killed this monster was definitely a wizard. Then why did they leave it to become a wraith? Kjorn lands with a heavy thud, his expression hardening as he realizes the gravity of the situation. Did they not know it becomes a wraith if you don't absorb the mana? No. A novice knight who doesn't even know something that basic could have killed a monster like this in the first place. He gathers his energy, his hands igniting with a brilliant, crackling light that illuminates the dark forest. Then did they have some other intention? Either way, I have to destroy it. Kjorn thrusts his hand forward, a blade of pure, concentrated lightning erupting from his palm toward the wraith. The beam of light strikes the creature with a deafening roar, shaking the ground beneath their feet. He watches in shock as the wraith absorbs the energy, its form remaining entirely unscathed by the blast. Kjorn stumbles back, his heart hammering against his ribs as he contemplates the terrifying power of his opponent. My magic was nullified. Does that mean that monster's mana is vastly stronger than mine? He looks around, his eyes darting through the darkness as the creature vanishes into the surrounding shadows. It disappeared. Kjorn grips his sword, his senses heightened as he desperately searches for the next point of attack. Is it trying to counter magic with magic? Where is it? The ground beneath him begins to bubble and churn, a dark, oily substance rising to the surface. Kjorn turns just in time to see the wraith emerging from the shadows, its form towering over him. He raises his blade to block, the force of the impact sending shockwaves through the entire forest. Kjorn is thrown backward, his body slamming into a tree as he struggles to maintain his footing. He spits out blood, his vision blurring as he realizes the overwhelming disparity in their current power levels. This isn't a level a mere knight can contend with. At the very least, you'd need to be a lower-ranked noble to have a chance. Kjorn pushes himself off the ground, his movements sluggish as he fights to stay conscious and upright. He gasps, his face twisted in a grimace of pain as he accepts the dire reality of his predicament. To think I'd run into a monster wraith of this caliber in some remote mountain village. You really never know what life will throw at you. Kjorn stands tall, his resolve hardening as he prepares to face his end with dignity and courage. So this is as far as I go. He clenches his teeth, his eyes burning with a final, desperate spark of defiance against the encroaching darkness. I'm not going to die obediently. Even if I die, I'll take you with me. Kjorn channels his remaining strength, his hand glowing with an intense, blinding light as he prepares one final strike. I'll concentrate all my mana into my hand. If I stab it directly the moment it lunges at me, the wraith lunges, its claws outstretched, ready to tear through everything in its path with savage, mindless hunger. Kjorn roars, his entire body trembling under the strain of the mana he is forcing into his palm. He lunges forward, his strike meeting the creature as a massive explosion of light engulfs the forest floor. A flash of brilliant, azure energy cuts through the darkness, silencing the chaotic sounds of the battle instantly. Tyran stands amidst the dissipating smoke, his hand glowing with a power that dwarfs anything seen before. He strikes the wraith, his movements fluid and precise, shattering the creature into countless harmless shards of light. Kjorn watches in utter disbelief, his jaw slack as he stares at the young shepherd standing before him. The wraith collapses into nothingness, leaving only the quiet, rustling leaves of the forest in its wake. Tyran turns toward him, his expression calm and composed as if he had just completed a minor chore. Are you all right? Kjorn stares at him, his mind struggling to reconcile the gentle shepherd with the terrifying power he just witnessed. A shepherd's joke is pretty startling too. Tyran walks toward him, his staff held loosely in his hand as he offers a faint, knowing smile. Tyran. Kjorn breathes out, his voice trembling as he finally understands the true nature of his companion. So you were a wizard? Yes, sir. He looks at the young man, his confusion and awe warring with the relief of having survived the encounter. Why did you tell me? Tyran pauses, his gaze steady as he shifts the focus of the conversation to the night's survival. No, let me change the question. Why did you help me just now? You could have just walked away. Tyran smiles, his eyes reflecting the soft, golden light of the setting sun as he answers the question. Because they sit together in the cabin, the quiet warmth of the hearth providing a sanctuary from the world outside. Why are you going this far? What do you mean? Tyran looks at the night, his words carrying the weight of a wisdom that defies his youthful appearance. I don't know what the village chief promised you, but with your skill, I feel like you could earn a lot more money more comfortably. Ha. Kjorn listens, his interest piqued by the young man's perspective on the people of the frontier village. They are pitiful people. In what way? Tyran gestures toward the window, his voice filled with a quiet, protective concern for the villagers. Living out here on the frontier, trembling in fear, without even basic protection. That isn't your fault, is it? He speaks with conviction, his eyes glowing with a subtle, inner light that speaks of his hidden power. A wizard is, by nature, someone who inherited the power of a god. If so, then we should live with pride in protecting powerless commoners. Kjorn smiles, his respect for the young man growing with every word spoken in the quiet, candlelit room. Well, not every wizard thinks the way I do. Everyone has their own thoughts and their own way of living. Tyran looks down, a small, enigmatic smile playing on his lips as he contemplates the future. He looks back at the night, his expression bright and hopeful as he challenges the established norms of their world. Doesn't everyone have their own way of living? The forest erupts in a blinding flash of magical energy, the trees bending under the sheer force of the surge. Tyran moves with lightning speed, his voice cutting through the chaos as he warns his friend to retreat. Listen carefully, it's not a level we can handle. He turns toward the encroaching darkness, his posture radiating a calm, focused intent that commands the very air. It's a monster you can't fight unless you're at least a noble. Go tell the village chief this immediately and help them evacuate. Tyran stands alone against the massive, looming wraith, his hands glowing with a power that defies all logic. I'll hold it here. Kjorn watches from the distance, his heart pounding as he realizes the true, hidden strength of his companion. I talked big, but I don't know how long I can last. Tyran looks back at him, his gaze steady and reassuring as he prepares to face the beast alone. It's okay. What? He gestures toward the creature, his voice calm as he explains the tactical advantage he has just created. If that attack landed just now, I think it'll be okay. What are you talking about? Kjorn stares in disbelief, his mind racing as he tries to process the impossible display of power. Is he saying that attack wasn't his full strength? A young knight hiding out in the mountains can hunt a wraith that even nobles have to deal with. Kjorn realizes the magnitude of the situation, his eyes widening as he understands the role he is playing. The veteran knight Kjorn thought this. What he's seeing right now isn't some small connection he happened to make in a rural village. The air crackles with residual magic, the atmosphere heavy with the promise of a coming, world-altering storm. Nor is it the reckless bravado of a young knight who ran from nobles. Tyran stands amidst the swirling vortex of light, his silhouette framed by the raw, untamed power of his magic. This scene before his eyes, the night sky begins to glow with an ethereal light, signaling the start of a new, unpredictable era. Could be the beginning of a wizard who will turn the world upside down. Dark mana swirls violently as a monstrous entity looms over the clearing, its green eye burning with malice. I was curious about my limits too. Kjorn channels golden flames into his hands, his stance firm against the encroaching darkness of the spectral foe. I won't allow you to do it. No matter how outstanding your talent is, that thing is a tough opponent. Kjorn prepares for the inevitable clash, his eyes scanning the monster for any opening in its shadowy form. We have to join forces. A torrent of blue energy erupts, tearing through the forest air as the combatants prepare their next strike. Kjorn watches the display of power, his heart racing as he realizes his own limitations in this battle. No, right now I'd only get in the way. I couldn't even react to that last attack. He focuses his remaining energy, deciding to prioritize the safety and development of his young companion instead. At this moment, I'm not any help. What I need to do now is make Tyran's talent bloom. Tyran unleashes a massive surge of mana, the light blinding as he strikes at the heart of the wraith. Tyran watches the impact, his brow furrowed in frustration as the monster remains standing despite his powerful assault. Damn it. The air grows heavy with the scent of ozone as the creature ignores the damage, pushing forward relentlessly. It's not working. Kjorn lunges forward, his boots crushing the dirt as he tries to intercept the creature's path of destruction. Kjorn shouts a warning to the boy, his voice echoing through the trees with the weight of experience. You can't kill a wraith with physical attacks. The ground trembles under the weight of the monster's heavy, phantom steps, shaking the very foundations of the woods. Tyran stands his ground, his eyes narrowing as he searches for a way to overcome the spectral entity. Then how do I kill it? Tyran reaches out, his hand glowing with heat as he prepares to channel a new, more lethal element. With fire, Tyran focuses his intent, the air around his palm crackling with the potential of a devastating electrical discharge. Or lightning. Fire erupts from his fingertips, enveloping the monster in a swirling inferno that singes the surrounding dark energy. Tyran observes the flames dancing on the creature's hide, his expression hardening as he realizes the battle is escalating. It's not working. That's not the point. Kjorn stares in disbelief, his mind racing as he analyzes the fundamental errors in the boy's magical approach. To apply a wizard's power to another living being, establishing proper causality, is a basic requirement. Don't tell me he doesn't even know the most basic common sense of a wizard. Kjorn freezes, a realization dawning on him that changes everything he thought he knew about his companion. Could it be? Tyran continues his assault, the force of his strikes causing the earth to crack and shift violently. He was the one who killed the monster and left it alone to become a wraith. Kjorn watches the boy move, his jaw dropping at the sheer raw power being displayed without any training. So that means Tyran has never absorbed mana in his life. Tyran adjusts his stance, his focus sharpening as he listens to the advice shouted from behind him. Don't light a fire, make it then shoot it. And he's already that strong. Tyran dashes forward, his movements fluid and precise as he weaves through the monster's desperate, flailing attacks. Tyran gathers mana in his palm, the flames spiraling into a compact, lethal sphere of pure, concentrated heat. Kjorn watches from the sidelines, his brow damp with sweat as he observes the boy's incredible, untrained potential. If you're a wizard, making a fire shouldn't be difficult, but controlling fire requires separate training. Kjorn gasps as he sees the boy manifest the flames with terrifying speed and ease, defying all logic. He can do it immediately. Tyran plants his feet firmly, the ground beneath him cratering as he prepares to unleash his final, decisive strike. Tyran lunges, his body a blur of motion as he drives the burning mana directly into the wraith's core. The explosion of light and heat consumes the clearing, the sound of the impact echoing like thunder overhead. Tyran watches the monster dissolve into ash, the green light of its eye finally fading into nothingness. Kjorn steps forward, his eyes wide as he witnesses the total annihilation of the spectral threat before him. Kjorn yells, his voice strained as he ensures the boy maintains his concentration until the very last ember dies. Keep your mind focused. You have to keep pouring mana into it so the fire doesn't go out. Tyran holds his hand aloft, the remaining flames licking at the air as he finishes the ritualistic cleansing. You have to burn everything about the wraith away. Tyran closes his eyes, the residual heat reflecting in his pupils as he finally releases his hold on the mana. The forest falls silent, the charred remains of the monster smoldering as the oppressive aura begins to dissipate. Kjorn stands tall, his chest heaving as he surveys the battlefield, a sense of relief washing over him. We won. Kjorn looks at the boy, his expression one of profound awe at the display of power he just witnessed. That was an absurdly strong wraith, a wraith you'd need at least noble-class power to fight. Kjorn blinks, his eyes widening as he realizes the true magnitude of the feat performed by his companion. But he took it down. Tyran stands amidst the smoke, his silhouette framed by the fading embers of the battle he just concluded. Is it really over now? A shepherd from the mountains did it. Kjorn gestures toward the dissipating remains, his voice calm as he instructs the boy on the next step. If you don't want to meet another wraith, absorb the mana first. How do I do that? Kjorn demonstrates the motion, his hand gracefully pulling the lingering energy toward him in a rhythmic, practiced gesture. Imagine yourself draining something into you. All right. Tyran nods, his face serene as he begins to reach out with his mind to grasp the invisible currents. The green essence of the defeated monster begins to flow toward the boy, swirling like a spectral mist. Tyran channels the energy, his hand glowing with a vibrant, otherworldly light as he draws the power inward. Tyran feels the mana surge through his veins, his eyes glowing with the intensity of the absorbed magical essence. Tyran shudders as the raw power courses through his body, the veins in his arms pulsing with light. Tyran gasps, his eyes snapping open as the overwhelming sensation of the mana floods his entire nervous system. Kjorn watches the boy, his expression unreadable as he observes the successful absorption of the monster's remaining essence. You'll feel some sort of pleasure. I can't believe it even after seeing it with my own eyes. Tyran looks at his hands, feeling the newfound strength vibrating beneath his skin as he contemplates the experience. So this really was your first time absorbing mana? Yes. Kjorn explains the nature of mana, his voice steady as he imparts the wisdom of his long, weary life. After one's first awakening, mana grows slowly with age. The best way to grow is to kill monsters or wizards and absorb their mana. Kjorn studies the boy, his mind racing as he calculates the implications of such a rapid, powerful awakening. But this was Tyran's first time absorbing mana, and yet he's already able to handle magic at that level, meaning his innate potential is on a different league. Kjorn pauses, his gaze lingering on the boy as he realizes the boy's destiny is far greater than these hills. Which means this young man is. Tyran turns, his expression curious as he notices the strange, contemplative look on his companion's face. Tyran? Yes. Kjorn bows his head, his posture shifting into one of uncharacteristic respect and humility toward the boy. I've been very rude to you. May I ask which house you belong to? Tyran smiles, his eyes soft as he looks at the man who has guided him through this trial. Kjorn? Yes. Kjorn winces, his arm bleeding from the battle, and he quickly tries to hide the injury from view. Wipe your blood off first. Ah. Kjorn stands in the dim light of the cabin, his arm bandaged as he reflects on the day's events. Tyran offers a tray with supplies, his movements careful as he tends to the man's wounded arm with care. Pardon me for my rudeness. For me to make someone so esteemed as yourself to do something like this, I can only apologize. Tyran shakes his head, his voice firm as he rejects the labels of nobility and prestige being placed upon him. I've told you many times that I'm not someone esteemed. I'm just a shepherd who doesn't even know who his father is. Tyran looks at the man, his eyes flashing with a brief moment of irritation at the constant, polite formality. So please stop it. All right, all right. Don't glare at me like that. Kjorn glances out the window at the modest cabin and the grazing sheep, his brow furrowed in deep thought. But why would a powerful wizard like you be a shepherd? I don't mean to belittle you, but it doesn't seem like it suits you. Tyran sits across from him, the warmth of the hearth illuminating his face as he recalls his mother's final words. It was my mother's request. She told me to do this right up until the moment she died. Your mother's request. Tyran explains the danger of the world, his voice low as he recounts the warnings he received as a child. Below the mountain, there are nobles. If it's revealed that you're a wizard, you'll only be used by them and then thrown away. Kjorn nods, his eyes reflecting the flickering firelight as he considers the wisdom hidden within such a simple command. She was wise. Kjorn leans back, his chair creaking as he contemplates the protective nature of the mother's final, desperate instruction. I'm surprised, since I thought you'd call it overprotective parenting. Your mother wasn't entirely wrong. Kjorn gestures with his hands, his voice heavy with the weight of history and the scars of past conflicts. Wizards have great power, and great power inevitably brings conflict. Just 20-some years ago, there was a major war between great noble houses. Kjorn describes the carnage, his eyes distant as he remembers the flames that once consumed his entire world. It was the war between the house of Arabian, which I served, and the great house of Zahar. Kjorn clenches his fist, his knuckles white as he recalls the sheer scale of the death and destruction. So many people died in that war. Kjorn looks down, his voice barely a whisper as he recounts the devastating toll taken on his comrades. Out of roughly 3,000 Arabian knights at the time, more than 900 died. Nearly a third of them died. Tyran listens intently, his heart heavy as he hears the tragic stories of the man's lost friends and family. Sadly, everyone close to me was in that third. Kjorn sighs, his shoulders slumping as he lists the names of the people who were stolen by the war. My friend Denver, who always said that he'd open a laundry shop once the war ended. My teacher Hartman, who scolded me, saying I still had so much to learn. And my beloved wife. Kjorn stares into the fire, his eyes burning with the memory of the massacre that left him completely alone. They were all massacred by House Zahar, and I alone survived. Kjorn looks at the boy, his expression softening as he tries to explain the harsh reality of their world. That's why your mother was right to an extent. A knight's life can vanish more easily and more meaninglessly than a commoner's. Tyran gazes at the man, his mind turning over the information as he tries to understand his own potential. But the one thing she was wrong about was your aptitude. My aptitude. Kjorn smiles weakly, his self-deprecating tone masking the genuine pride he feels for the boy's incredible raw talent. It's embarrassing to say this while I'm in such a state, but I'm a knight with fairly good skill. Yet you easily destroyed the monster's wraith that even I couldn't bring down. Kjorn leans forward, his voice intense as he emphasizes the importance of the boy's hidden, powerful bloodline. Your potential isn't merely that of a knight. At minimum, your noble level. Kjorn gestures to the room, his eyes bright with the conviction that the boy's destiny is truly extraordinary. And among them, at least upper-tier aptitude. Tyran looks up, his eyes searching the man's face for any sign of deception or hidden, ulterior motives. My mother said my father was a knight. Was that a lie? On rare occasions, a child worse than a knight is born among nobles, or a noble-class child is born among knights. Kjorn stands, his movements deliberate as he walks toward the exit, his gaze fixed on the horizon outside. In that sense, I think it would be better for you to leave this hill and go out into the world. Why? Kjorn points to the distant valley, his voice filled with a sense of urgency for the future of humanity. Because we humans need more nobles and knights. Humans still aren't the complete masters of the world. Kjorn describes the ancient history, his eyes dark as he speaks of the races waiting for their chance. Long ago, the other races that were pushed out by the gods are still watching for a chance to rise again. Kjorn clenches his jaw, his frustration evident as he considers the endless, petty wars of the noble houses. And in the middle of that, the nobles only keep waging war against each other. Kjorn opens the door, the sunlight streaming into the cabin as he invites the boy to step outside. That's why this is an age that desperately needs strong and kind nobles like you. Kjorn turns back, his eyes searching the boy's face as he challenges him to consider his own desires. More than anything, you aren't satisfied living as a shepherd, are you? Tyran looks at the man, his expression thoughtful as he considers the life he has led until now. Tyran asks the question, his voice quiet as he wonders what the world beyond the mountain truly holds. What could I gain down below the mountain? That depends on what you want. Kiorn lists the possibilities, his voice steady as he presents the various paths the boy could choose to follow. Wealth, fame, authority, family, or friendship. Any of that is hard to obtain here, isn't it? Kiorn stands in the doorway, his silhouette cast against the bright, open landscape of the world beyond the cabin. Try imagining it. You could wander like me and destroy monsters that threaten people. Kiorn points to the weapons on the wall, his voice encouraging as he suggests the different roles available. Or become an explorer who ventures into the unknown. Or how about being adopted into a house and walking the path of power? Tyran looks at the man, his expression shifting as he begins to see the truth in the man's words. Listening to you, I think you're right. Tyran stands in the field, the sheep grazing peacefully around them as he considers the vast new possibilities. It would be more interesting than herding sheep here. Tyran smiles, his eyes bright with a newfound curiosity that he has never felt for the outside world. For the first time, I'm seriously curious about the world outside. Kiorn nods, his expression one of support, as he promises to stand by the boy's side regardless of choice. I worry I might be planting expectations for no reason, though. I'll support every possibility you have. Kiorn pauses, his brow furrowed as he realizes he has forgotten to ask about the boy's specific abilities. Oh, right, what's your bloodline ability? I should have asked this first. Bloodline ability. Kiorn chuckles, his expression apologetic as he realizes the boy's lack of knowledge regarding complex magical systems. Oh, sorry. I keep forgetting you don't know much about magic. Kiorn describes the core of noble power, his voice reverent as he explains the significance of the bloodline. A bloodline ability is a trait nobles inherit from their ancestor, the Freyans. Whether or not you have a bloodline ability is also what separates nobles from knights. Kiorn gestures to the boy, his eyes searching for any sign of a unique, inherent magical talent or trait. Was there any spell that felt unusually easy and simple when you used magic? Or some outstanding ability you have that doesn't need you to use magic? Tyran shakes his head, his face thoughtful as he tries to recall any specific, unusual talents he might possess. It's not that I'm strong, right? Just having mana makes a wizard's physical abilities stronger. Tyran shrugs, his voice casual as he lists his mundane skills, unaware of their potential magical significance. I have a good nose, and I'm pretty good at throwing stones. If your sense of smell is exceptionally good, you can consider it a bloodline ability. Kiorn nods, his eyes widening as he realizes the boy's skills might actually be indicators of a noble lineage. Being skilled with thrown weapons is one of House Arabian's traits. It's a fairly common trait, though. Kiorn urges the boy to continue, his voice filled with anticipation as he waits for more information. Go on, tell me more. All right. Tyran looks at the man, his expression confused as he struggles to understand the importance of these details. I see, sir. Kiorn stares at the boy, his eyes intense as he processes the information and connects it to the past. Why are you suddenly acting like this? Tyran watches the man, his heart beating faster as he senses the gravity of the man's sudden realization. I think I know. Which house your abilities are closest to? Kiorn leans in, his voice dropping to a whisper as he prepares to reveal the truth he has discovered. Which house is that? Kiorn stands in the doorway, the light from the outside casting a long, dramatic shadow across the floor. A great house. Kiorn describes the history of the house, his voice chilling as he recounts their role in the brutal war. Known as pursuers or hunters. House Zahar, the one that fought a war. Kiorn looks at the boy, his face twisted with the pain of the memories he has carried for decades. With House Arabian, Tyran stands in the silence, his eyes wide as the weight of his true identity begins to sink in. The heavy air of the past hangs over the landscape as Tyran confronts the weight of his lineage. House Zahar. Tyran stares into the void, his mind racing with the implications of his own blood. The great House Zahar. Kiorn stands like a silent sentinel, casting a long shadow over the grass. You're telling me I'm from the same bloodline as the Elder's enemies. Tyran sighs, the burden of history pressing down upon his shoulders. What should I say to him? Should I apologize? Kiorn smiles, his voice cutting through the tension like a blade. Tyran. He places a firm hand on the shoulder of the younger man. Elder, don't make such a worried expression. Tyran looks up, his eyes searching for answers in the weathered face before him. You didn't participate in that war yourself. Kiorn chuckles, his gaze fixed on the horizon. But still, it's an adult situation. If we try to wash blood with blood, the fighting will never end. Tyran narrows his eyes, sensing the hidden depths behind the calm demeanor. Don't you have regrets? The wind sweeps across the open fields, carrying the scent of distant mountains and forgotten battles. About what? Kjorn gestures toward the path ahead, his tone shifting to one of solemn warning. About telling me to go down the hill. Tyran listens intently, his heart heavy with the weight of the coming journey. If you go down the mountain and pursue power, you'll inevitably end up joining the Zahar family. You have outstanding abilities, after all. Kjorn pauses, his eyes reflecting a lifetime of experience. But I trust your character. Sorry. Tyran remains silent, absorbing the gravity of the advice given by his mentor. I'm talking about the goodness in you since you saved me. Even while revealing an identity you'd hidden your whole life. Rather, if someone like you joined the Zahar family and rose to a high position within it, perhaps it could prevent such a terrible war from happening again. Kjorn turns away, his silhouette blending into the fading light of the afternoon. Well, either way, there's no need to think too seriously about it. After all, it's not like you've decided right now whether or not to join the Zahar family. Tyran stands tall, his resolve hardening like tempered steel. My thoughts are clear now. HM. He smiles, a flicker of determination lighting up his features. I want to try going down the mountain. Kjorn nods, a look of pride crossing his face. You've thought well, but not right away. The small wooden cabin sits nestled in the quiet valley, surrounded by the stillness of the trees. I'll head down once your injury heals, Elder. Kjorn waves a hand dismissively. How kind. I'm merely a bit scratched. Truly, you're a really good person. Sunlight streams through the window, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the warm, quiet room. To use magic, you absolutely need mana. That's why mana is commonly called the key to omnipotence. Tyran leans forward, his curiosity piqued by the lecture. The key to omnipotence. It's not a truly omnipotent power as the name suggests, but to use magic, you need mana that matches it. Kjorn points to the table, his fingers tracing patterns in the wood. What is the standard for mana that matches magic? I'll explain that right now. He holds up his hand, displaying 3 fingers with deliberate precision. The difficulty of magic is largely determined by 3 factors. First is bloodline, second is affinity, and third is causality. Tyran watches the explanation, his mind cataloging every detail. The first one, bloodline, is determined by the bloodline you were born with. This applies to most nobles who aren't knights. Kjorn gestures to his own bandaged arm. For example, it would be difficult for you to heal my wounds with magic, right? Tyran nods slowly. Yes. Kjorn smiles, his eyes glinting with secret knowledge. But for the Ravista bloodline from the south, it's something they can do even without training. That's a power that comes from bloodline. Tyran leans back, pondering the implications of the lesson. What about the second one, affinity? You can also think of it as familiarity. Kjorn nods in agreement. It's the concept that a mage can more easily perform tasks that they prefer or are used to. Like how I made a fireball as if I was throwing a rock. Tyran smiles, recognizing the truth in the statement. Correct. Probably if you had simply made flames, you wouldn't have achieved that speed or firepower. Kjorn gestures toward the cup on the table, his expression turning serious. And the last one is most important, causality. Even I don't fully understand it. Tyran watches the cup, his brow furrowed in concentration. What would happen if you tried to kill me directly using mana? Probably some light would shine from my head, and that would be it. Kjorn taps the table, his movements fluid and controlled. That's exactly the phenomenon that occurs from a lack of causality. Tyran observes the faint sparks dancing around the rim of the metal cup. When there's no appropriate cause for a desired outcome, and when what needs to be achieved is excessively difficult, that's when this applies. Kjorn leans back, satisfied with the progress of his student. I think I understand what causality is a bit. Tyran visualizes the concept, his mind racing through potential applications. If I wanted to kill you rather than spending mana wishing for death, I would need to provide a cause of death, like creating and shooting flames, right? Kjorn grins, his eyes bright with excitement. Because creating and shooting fire is more natural than directly lighting one. Exactly. You could have become a scholar instead of a mage. Tyran gestures to the window, his voice low and thoughtful. But I can control ordinary animals as I wish. So why is it that magical beasts need something like that? Kjorn looks out at the forest, his gaze distant. That's because of their mana. The window frame casts long, geometric shadows across the wooden floorboards of the cabin. Tyran sighs, the complexity of the art weighing on his mind. Magic isn't easy, huh? An excellent mage knows not just how to use mana, but the principles and situations behind it as well. Kjorn turns to face him, a challenge in his eyes. Now that I think of it, does the Zahar bloodline also have special magic? They're skilled in stealth and tracking. Try it once. Tyran stands up, his posture shifting into a stance of deep focus. Okay, I don't want to be seen by others. I wish neither sound nor smell be detected. Kjorn blinks, his eyes widening in genuine surprise. Did it work? Kjorn looks around the empty space, his jaw dropping in disbelief. You succeeded. I can't see you. Kjorn exhales, a look of profound respect on his face. It's been a while since I've seen it, but it's still a frightening ability. During the war, the Arabian Knights feared that ability most. Tyran smiles, his confidence growing with every passing moment. This seems like an unfairly powerful ability, but keep in mind it's not invincible. Kjorn walks toward the door, his steps heavy and deliberate. Now then, I'll teach you a few magic training methods. Aren't you teaching too much to an enemy family's mage? Tyran follows him, his expression one of quiet determination. You saved my life and even treated me, and didn't I tell you? Kjorn pauses, a warm smile gracing his features. I trust your character. The village square is bustling with activity, the sounds of livestock filling the air. What, you're selling the sheep and leaving? Tyran stands amidst the crowd, his belongings packed securely upon his back. Then who's going to do the shepherding from now on? How can you just decide something like that without consulting us? Kjorn watches from a distance, his arms crossed over his chest. You guys should figure out how to find a shepherd yourselves. How does it matter to you what I do with my belongings? Tyran turns to the villagers, his voice firm and unwavering. Anyway, I hope you'll buy the sheep at a fair price. Otherwise, I'm going to release them all and leave. Tyran stares them down, his gaze cold and unyielding. You're free to capture them, but you'll probably have quite a hard time doing it. The village, chief. Kjorn steps forward, his voice a low rumble of authority. This bastard is someone who keeps his word. There's nothing that will come from irritating him. Fine, I get it. Leave or stay, do whatever you want. Tyran glances at his companion, his curiosity getting the better of him. Now that I think of it, those villagers, they still owe you compensation after everything. Should I go collect it? Kjorn shakes his head, a weary smile on his lips. I had no intention of receiving it, and it was you who caught the magical beast, wasn't it? Tyran nods, his expression softening. All right, then now. The forest path stretches out before them, a canopy of green leaves filtering the sunlight. We must part ways here. Kjorn pauses, his gaze lingering on the path ahead. I'm sorry for refusing your offer to travel together. I'm more comfortable alone. Tyran bows, his voice filled with genuine gratitude. Not at all, thank you for everything. Kjorn smiles, his eyes crinkling at the corners. Tyran, take care. Tyran looks up, his heart swelling with a mixture of sadness and hope. Elder, I hope we can meet again with smiling faces. The dense forest swallows the path, the trees standing like silent witnesses to their departure. And so the boy watched Kjorn's retreating figure for a long time. Tyran stands motionless, his thoughts drifting to the lessons he has learned. Only later did he realize why he didn't want the old knight to speak to him formally. The memories of his childhood flicker like dying embers in the back of his mind. Although he never lacked affection from his mother, the boy had secretly been yearning for a father figure. Tyran turns his back on the forest, his eyes fixed on the horizon. Someone who could be a role model for what kind of man the boy should become. Tyran pauses, his eyes narrowing as he spots a group of figures in the distance. The figures move slowly, their silhouettes distorted by the shimmering heat waves. Are they traveling merchants that go from village to village? Tyran steps forward, his boots crunching against the hard-packed sand. Good, let's ask for directions. A man steps forward, his face obscured by a hood and a rugged beard. Who are you to block our path? I'm traveling alone. May I ask about the nearest city? Tyran smiles, his voice calm and polite. If you follow the road we came from, you'll reach a city called Mure. I see. He turns to leave, his steps measured and steady. Thank you for telling me. A sharp sound rings out as a boot strikes the sand, blocking his path. Wait. Tyran stops, his hand hovering near his side. You're just going to leave after getting information. What? The man sneers, his eyes glinting with malice. Then, if you receive something, you should give something in return. Blades are drawn, the steel flashing in the harsh, unforgiving sunlight. First, take off that bulging bag. Tyran looks at the weapons, his expression remaining unreadable. Bandits, so what if we are bandits? The leader laughs, his voice a harsh, grating sound. Let's call it recklessness. This is a wasteland where no one would find it strange if someone died, right? Tyran stands his ground, his eyes scanning the surrounding attackers. Take off your bag and cloak yourself while we're being nice. Killing you and stripping you down would get unnecessarily bloody and take a lot of work. He sighs, a flicker of disappointment crossing his face. I see. Bandits who even kill people. Tyran looks at the bandits, a cold, sharp smile playing on his lips. I'll have to use you guys for practice. Dust swirls thickly around the arid landscape as Tyran stands there, his presence radiating an aura of lethal intent. Guess I'll use you guys for practice. The bandits sneer at him, their voices dripping with mockery as they surround the lone traveler in the desert. This lunatic's talking like he's some kind of wizard. For real, boss. Tyran channels his internal energy, fingers twitching as the ambient mana begins to coalesce into a sharp, swirling vortex. Violent gusts erupt from his palm, tearing through the parched earth and sending the surprised men stumbling backward in terror. Wind. Tyran maintains his focus, his mind calculating the flow of energy to optimize every ounce of his magical output. So instead of just generating wind out of thin air, shaping it with my hand, and amplifying it uses far less mana. He watches the bandits collapse under the pressure of the gale, their bravado shattered by his sudden display of power. I didn't know I could whip up wind this strong with so little mana. What the hell? Tyran shifts his stance, droplets of moisture gathering around his hand as he prepares a secondary, more refined offensive technique. He releases the solidified water shards, sending them whistling through the air with the precision of a master marksman. The projectiles strike true, forcing the bandits to retreat as blood sprays across the shifting sands of the wasteland. Cug. Tyran observes the aftermath, realizing that his newfound abilities are far more versatile than he had originally anticipated during training. Wasn't this supposed to be a spell that's useful when there's a lot of water nearby? Honestly, just throwing stones feels faster and stronger. The terrified leader crawls toward him, his hands trembling as he begs for mercy amidst the wreckage of his group. We didn't know you were a wizard. Please just forgive us this once. Tyran stands unmoved, watching the remaining bandits grovel at his feet while they offer everything they have for their lives. We'll give you anything you want, so please just spare our lives. Tyran turns away, his boots crunching against the gravel as he leaves the defeated men to their own desperate fate. The bandit leader stares at the retreating figure, his eyes wide with disbelief at the sheer brutality of the encounter. Impossible. Tyran pauses, the silhouettes of his fallen enemies looming in the background like dark omens against the twilight sky. They are all dead. He stops and looks back at the leader, his gaze cold and unyielding as he demands an explanation for the ambush. Let me ask you one thing. Why, yes, wizard, I'll answer anything. Tyran tilts his head, his voice calm yet laced with a dangerous edge that makes the air feel heavy. Why did you attack me without a plan? If I'm a traveler walking alone, I could be a wizard just like now. The leader cowers, his voice shaking as he admits the simple, fatal mistake that led them to this confrontation. Because you bowed your head. What? He explains the logic of their greed, revealing how they misjudged the traveler based on his initial, polite demeanor. Even when we spoke to you rudely, you bowed and greeted us, so we assumed you were an ordinary person. Tyran nods slowly, internalizing the lesson that in this harsh world, kindness is often mistaken for weakness by predators. Thanks, that taught me something useful. The leader pleads for his life once more, his voice cracking with the desperation of a man facing his end. Then, will you really spare me? Tyran recalls the firm, calloused hands and the scarred face of his mentor, Kiorn, appearing in his memory. Kiorn looks at him with a stern expression, his voice echoing with wisdom born from years of surviving the wilds. From now on, you're going to meet a lot of people. And there's something I absolutely want to tell you. He emphasizes the necessity of ruthlessness when dealing with those who prey upon the weak for their own gain. Never show mercy to scum like bandits, the kind who don't hesitate to harm others to profit. Tyran looks down at the discarded blade, the metal gleaming with a dull, ominous light in the fading sun. The reason I'm saying this so firmly is, I think I understand the reason. He realizes the weight of his mentor's words, seeing how one act of hesitation could lead to future tragedies. Because a life I spare out of pity could end up harming 10 good people. Tyran sheathes his weapon, his expression hardening as he resolves to walk the path of a true survivor. I've stalled long enough. The desert stretches out before him, a vast expanse of golden dunes marked by the remnants of the bandits. Those clear wheel tracks cutting across the sand. Tyran walks forward, his footsteps leaving a trail that slowly disappears into the shifting, restless landscape of the wasteland. Left, one thought burned sharply into Tyran's mind. He acknowledges the burden of his actions, accepting that his journey will be paved with difficult necessary choices ahead. I killed people. Tyran feels the lingering weight of the encounter, his conscience grappling with the reality of his mentor's harsh, necessary advice. He felt guilt, but he couldn't just let them go because Kjorn's warning came back to him. He understands that predators will always seek their next target, making his choice a protective act for the innocent. People who could decide without hesitation to rob and kill for profit would target others again, at any time. The wind whispers across the dunes, erasing the marks of the past as he continues his solitary trek forward. Like wheel tracks in the desert slowly fading as weeds grow over them, Tyran's chaotic heart gradually settled as he recalled Kjorn's teaching. Green fields replace the endless sand as he crosses the border into a land of promise and new beginnings. And then, he arrived in a new world. Tyran looks toward the horizon, his eyes widening at the sight of the towering stone walls of the city. Wow, the city of Mure rises from the landscape, its spires piercing the clouds and casting long shadows over the town. So that's the place. Crowds bustle through the gates, a sea of humanity that hums with the vibrant, chaotic energy of urban life. Small city Mure. Tyran navigates the busy streets, his senses overwhelmed by the sheer number of people gathered in this central hub. This is my first time seeing so many people crowding around. The grand architecture looms above, a stark contrast to the simple, rustic dwellings he had known his entire life. Even the architecture is completely different from the village. He walks through the market, feeling the pulse of the city beneath his feet as he observes the locals. Now it really feels like I've come to a city. Tyran stops at a fruit stand, his curiosity piqued by the colorful display of goods offered by the merchant. "Excuse me." "Oh, welcome." The merchant smiles, eager to make a sale as he gestures toward the fresh produce stacked high on tables. "What can I get you?" I'm not a customer." Tyran remembers the advice given to him by Kjorn about finding shelter when arriving in an unfamiliar, crowded city. If you reach a city and need a place to rest, look for an inn. No matter the village or city, there's usually an inn. The merchant scowls, his demeanor shifting instantly as he waves a hand dismissively at the traveler who won't buy. "If you're not buying fruit, get lost." Tyran sighs, wondering if this hostility is a common trait among the people living within these stone walls. Why is he acting that rude? Is it some unspoken rule in cities that you have to buy fruit before you ask questions? He points at the fruit, deciding to play along with the local customs just to get the information needed. "How much is this?" "2 dupit." Tyran frowns, unfamiliar with the currency mentioned, yet he remains composed as he interacts with the grumpy merchant. "2 dupit. You look like an outsider, so you probably don't know that is. Paying with other coins is fine too." He gestures toward the street, his hand indicating the path to the inn as he finally answers the question. "Where can I find the inn?" "Go straight down the road behind the Cape shop, then turn left. You'll see it with a blue roof. The sign for the establishment hangs above the entrance, its wood weathered by time and the bustling city traffic. That place is the biggest inn in the city." Lena stands behind the counter, her bright smile welcoming the traveler as he steps into the warm, inviting lobby. "Welcome to our inn." Inn staff Lena. Tyran glances around the room, impressed by the cozy atmosphere that feels like a sanctuary from the busy streets. "You're a handsome guest. How much for a night?" Lena beams, her eyes sparkling as she quotes the price for the room, making him feel at ease immediately. 16 dupit. I'll stay." Tyran hands over the payment, his mind already focused on the next step of his journey in this city. "More importantly, there's something I want to ask. Something you want to ask." He leans in, his voice lowered as he seeks information about potential threats that could serve his own goals. "Is there a monster nearby with a bounty on it?" "A monster." Tyran explains his objective, driven by the desire to grow stronger and earn money through his unique magical abilities. "I need to kill monsters and absorb their mana, and he said hunting monsters would earn money too." Lena stares at him, her expression unreadable as she processes the strange request from the young, mysterious traveler. "Why aren't you answering, sir?" She gestures to the room, her tone turning serious as she corrects his naive assumption about the local economy. There's no such thing as free in this world. Wooden barrels are stacked in the corner, their presence a reminder of the daily commerce that sustains this bustling city. City Hall. Tyran sips his drink, his curiosity piqued by the mention of a place he has never heard of before. "What's that?" Lena laughs softly, her eyes crinkling as she realizes just how sheltered he truly was in his remote village. "You don't know about city halls? Wow, you really are from the countryside." She explains the function of the government building, detailing how it manages the public affairs of the entire region. City halls are where they handle various public affairs. The officials who work there are employed by the city's lord. Lena points toward the window, the fading lights signaling the end of the day and the closure of offices. "It's probably closed since the sun's already down. If you want to find a monster bounty, go to City Hall tomorrow." Tyran considers her words, wondering if there are others like him who seek to hunt monsters for profit. "So, are you a monster hunter too?" "What's a monster hunter?" She describes the legend of the hunters, her voice filled with a mixture of awe and skepticism about the rumors. "People say that if an ordinary person hunts monsters, they become a wizard. You want to become a wizard too, don't you?" Tyran scoffs, his hand resting on the table as he dismisses the idea as mere folklore for the gullible. "Of course, anyone who believes that kind of superstition is an idiot." Superstition. A man steps forward, his presence commanding as he challenges the traveler's skepticism with his own personal experience. "It's a real fact that you can become a wizard by killing monsters. Monster Hunter Midden. I saw it with my own eyes." Tyran looks up, surprised to see a familiar face among the patrons of the inn. "Midden, you're still alive. I told you I'm not dying until I become a wizard." Midden laughs, his hand landing on Tyran's shoulder. Excuse me." Tyran leans in, his interest piqued by the possibility that the rumors might actually hold a grain of truth. "More importantly, could I hear more about what you just said? The part where you can become a wizard by killing monsters." Lena watches the exchange, her expression thoughtful as she listens to the hunters talk about their shared, ambitious goal. "Wizards get stronger when they hunt monsters. By the same principle, if an ordinary person kills a monster, they can become a wizard." The group of hunters nods in agreement, their faces lit with the fire of determination and the promise of power. "The four of us are hunting monsters to become wizards." Yes. Tyran looks at them, his mind racing as he wonders if any of them have already achieved their goal. "Then does that mean someone among you is already a wizard?" "No way. In this city, there are only the Lord's wizard and 3 under him." Midden gestures to the traveler, his eyes scanning the gear that seems far too simple for such a dangerous profession. "But you said you hunt monsters. For that, your gear's way too shabby. Don't you have a weapon?" Tyran pulls out his sling, the leather worn from years of practice, and shows it to the curious hunters. "I do." "Oh, a sling? Judging by how worn it is, you've used it a lot." Midden examines the tool, his voice appreciative as he acknowledges the utility of such a simple, effective weapon. "That I have. It's good for firing something about the size of an egg quickly. With that, you could easily hunt rabbit or fox monsters." He offers an invitation, hoping to recruit the traveler into their ranks to bolster their hunting party's effectiveness. "Actually, we were just saying we wished we had one more shooter. Any interest in hunting with us?" Tyran remains silent, his expression unreadable as he contemplates the offer and the potential benefits of joining them. He declines the invitation with a polite smile, his resolve to remain independent stronger than any desire for company. "No, thank you though. There's no reason I have to hunt together with them." Tyran lies on the bed, his mind swirling with the events of the day and the strange new world ahead. What a chaotic day. He stares at his backpack, the weight of his journey hitting him as he realizes he has truly left home. "I still can't believe I actually left the village." Tyran practices his magic, the blue energy crackling between his fingers as he prepares for the challenges of tomorrow. What's going to happen from here on? He hears a knock at the door, his instincts flaring as he sits up, ready to confront any potential intruder. Who is it? Tyran recalls the lessons of his mentor, the importance of vigilance echoing in his mind as he approaches the entrance. Even at an inn, I shouldn't let my guard down? That's right. Kiorn appears in his thoughts once more, his stern guidance reinforcing the need for constant awareness in the city. A city isn't automatically safe. I see. Tyran nods to himself, his resolve hardening as he prepares to face whatever lies beyond the wooden door. Never let your guard down. Understood. He channels his mana, a soft glow illuminating his hand as he reaches for the latch with cautious, deliberate movements. Tyran peers through the gap, his eyes narrowing as he identifies the person standing in the hallway outside his room. He recognizes the visitor, his pulse steadying as he realizes who has come to see him in the night. Lena stands in the doorway, her smile soft and inviting in the dim light of the corridor. "Lena, were you asleep?" Tyran looks at her, his expression neutral as he waits for her to explain the reason for her late visit. "I thought the room might be cold, so I came to keep you warm." "What?" The moonlight spills into the room, casting a silver glow over the scene as she steps closer to him. "What do you mean by that?" Soft golden light spills across the room, illuminating the intimate space between them. "What do you mean by that?" Tyran stands tall, his presence casting a long, imposing shadow over the small chamber. "It's exactly what you heard," Lena says. She leans in, her off-the-shoulder dress revealing a tantalizing glimpse of her alluring chest. "Don't lie. I can tell just by looking at your face." Contrary to Lena's intentions, Tyran displays a Buddha-like, emotionless expression, which looks quite amusing. Lena doesn't understand anything, but it seems her attempt at seduction has failed. The image resurfaces in Tyran's mind, and he shouts with anger and sternness at his student. "Don't do it." He paces before the trees, his rugged features set in a grim, serious expression. "You always have to be careful with maids and prostitutes in general. Most of them carry sexually transmitted diseases." Kjorn continues to harp on the issue, seemingly obsessed with the troubles Tyran might face if he makes this mistake. "We have strong disease resistance, so it's not a problem. But if you're careless, you could pass it on to another woman. Don't let desire trap you into doing something you'll regret." Lena turns away in frustration, having lost her prey. Cities aren't easy to live in either. The fruit shop earlier, and now even Lena, to think they put a price on even small bits of information. Cities really are pretty cold-hearted, Tyran thinks to himself. Tyran lies still on the bed, his mind drifting through the quiet, suffocating darkness of the night. He shifts his gaze upward, his thoughts focused on the mysterious nature of his current employer. Outside in the hallway, voices can be heard conversing. "Boss, I've got something I'm curious about." Midden and his team are returning to their room. "Why were you trying to bring that guy along earlier?" Honestly, he didn't look like he'd be much help. Tyran rests his head on the pillow, a faint, knowing smirk playing on his lips. "That's right. He's got a cocky mouth, so he'd be perfect to use as monster bait." Midden looks down, his expression softening as he recalls the distant memories of his own youth. "It's because he reminds me of myself when I was young. Hearing he hunts with a weapon like that made me worry." He turns back to the room, his voice filled with a genuine, protective concern for his companion. "If he's at least next to me, I figured he might survive a little longer." Tyran closes his eyes, a flicker of amusement crossing his features at the unexpected display of kindness. "Seriously, you're too good-hearted, boss." He stares at the ceiling, the weight of the day finally beginning to lift from his shoulders. "Well, maybe the city isn't all that cold-hearted after all." Morning sunlight bathes the stone architecture of the city, casting sharp, elongated shadows across the marketplace. Tyran approaches the counter, his steady gaze meeting the clerk's curious, questioning eyes. "Greetings, how may I help?" He leans forward, his posture radiating a quiet, dangerous confidence that fills the room. "Are you an official?" The clerk pauses, his hand hovering over the parchment as he processes the unexpected inquiry. "Then what do I look like?" "I came to hunt monsters." Kjorn sits amidst his flock, his face weathered by years of harsh, unforgiving labor. "Monsters? The world won't be kind to you." He strokes the wool of a sheep, his eyes reflecting the deep, cynical wisdom of his age. "Why is that?" "Because if you think about the other way around, there's no reason it has to be kind. If you want people to treat you kindly, the method is simple." Tyran stands in the sunlight, his expression hardening as he contemplates the path ahead. "Reveal that you're a wizard. Then ordinary people will bow their heads." A hand reaches across the desk, sliding a piece of parchment toward the waiting figure. Tyran examines the document, his eyes tracing the intricate lines of the creature drawn upon it. "You can't take it with you, so look and hand it back," the clerk says. He points to the drawing, his brow furrowing in a moment of sharp, analytical focus. "Is it a crow monster? Does that look like a cat to you? The clerk retorts to Tyran with a disdainful tone. The clerk sighs, his fingers drumming nervously against the wooden surface of the desk. It's unlikely, but if you kill a monster, bring its corpse into the city. If a wizard doesn't disperse the mana, it becomes a wraith. Tyran nods slowly, his voice dropping to a low, cautious tone, determined not to repeat his mistakes. If you kill a monster and leave it abandoned under city law, the maximum penalty is execution. I know that, Tyran says. He stares at the image of the beast, his mind flashing back to the horrific consequences of his past. I know what happens when a monster becomes a wraith. I can't repeat the same mistake. The clerk leans back, his expression one of weary, bureaucratic indifference to the hunter's plight. But don't knights hunt monsters? Do you think they are people with time to spare? Tyran watches as a hand rests upon the paper, the ink staining the skin beneath. A knight's job is to maintain public order in the city. Hunting monsters outside the city, that's for thugs like you to handle. He turns away, his long coat fluttering as he exits the building into the bustling street. The clerk watches him go, his heart heavy with the grim reality of the city's future. He left. Another corpse is going to pile up outside the city. The carcass of the crow lies on the floor, a dark, gaping hole marking the center of its chest. The clerk gasps, his face draining of color as he stares at the lifeless, feathered form. This can't be. How in the world? Tyran stands calmly in the center of the room, his presence dwarfing the shocked men around him. You brought it back this fast. He looks at the clerk, his eyes steady and devoid of any pride or boastful intent. Did you kill it alone? Indeed. The clerk stammers, his hands trembling as he reaches for the ledger to process the payment. How do I receive the bounty? We have to give it to you, of course. Tyran accepts the heavy pouch, the metallic clink of coins echoing through the silent, tense room. Here it is. You must have worked hard, so please go get some rest. Thank you. The clerk stares in disbelief, his eyes wide as he examines the perfectly preserved wings of the beast. It's incredible. The blade wings are still intact. Is it even possible to bring back a blade crow in this condition? Tyran stands near the door, his silhouette framed by the harsh, incoming light of the afternoon. You're still here. The clerk looks up, his voice barely a whisper as he processes the hunter's strange, relentless drive. Are there any other monsters worth hunting? What? Tyran smiles, a sharp, dangerous gleam appearing in his eyes as he contemplates the next challenge. Don't tell me. You can still hunt more. A table is laden with a feast of steaming meat, crusty bread, and golden, aged cheeses. These are the most expensive items on our menu. Lena gestures toward the spread, her face glowing with genuine, unbridled admiration for the hunter. I never dreamed that someone like you could defeat 30 monsters in just 3 days. Tyran sits at the table, his hand gripping a piece of meat as he eats with focused, steady movements. You must have made a lot of money, right? He pauses, his gaze drifting toward the window as he considers the true nature of his power. Money isn't my only goal. More precisely, the goal is the monster's mana. Just by hunting monsters, Tyran has absorbed a significant amount of mana today. Thanks to that, I definitely got stronger. Tyran reflects on his journey, his hand resting on the table as he gauges his internal strength. Compared to when I met Kjorn, my mana has increased severalfold. He clenches his fist, feeling the subtle, frustrating limitations of his current mortal vessel. Though I can feel a limit. With only weak monsters' mana, it might be hard to get any stronger. Lena looks at him, her expression shifting to one of sudden, sharp curiosity and concern. Actually, what? She gestures to the empty plates, her voice filled with a playful, teasing tone of disbelief. You didn't steal a bite of this, did you? You ate it all by yourself. A man stands nearby, his arms crossed as he observes the interaction with a gruff, amused smile. You're skinny, but you really can eat. I made it for the first time in a while, so I'm happy you enjoyed it. Tyran stands up, his movements fluid and graceful as he prepares to depart from the inn. It was really delicious. Then next time I'll make it even better. A hand reaches out, grabbing the fabric of his coat with a sudden, aggressive, and forceful jerk. The men surround him, their faces twisted into masks of jealousy and petty, calculated malice. You eating something tasty by yourself. Tyran remains calm, his eyes scanning the group as he prepares to deal with the impending threat. You skinny runt, I heard you've been making a lot of money lately. Suddenly, a hand chop lands squarely in the middle of the man's face as he's in the middle of speaking. How about giving some charity to your partners? The man flies backward, his body crashing into the wooden furniture with a loud, jarring, and heavy thud. Fuck, be bastard. Tyran stands perfectly still, his hands maintaining their position. Didn't you want some charity? The attacker lunges forward, his fist raised high in a desperate, clumsy attempt to strike back. Don't get cocky. He strikes the man with lightning speed, his fist landing squarely on the jaw with a sickening, audible crack. The man collapses to the floor, his body limp as he struggles to regain his fading consciousness. Yuwa. Before he could react, Tyran's finger was right in front of his eyes. The man is flicked backward, his body sliding across the floor until he hits the wall with force. Ugh. Lena watches the brawl unfold, her lips parting as she struggles to find the right words. Don't. Fight in the inn. She shouts into the room, her voice trembling with a mix of fear and desperate, urgent authority. A moment later, Midden leads the troublemakers, their heads bowed, their postures hunched in a display of deep, genuine, and forced contrition. I sincerely apologize. Tyran stands in the doorway, his silhouette casting a long shadow over the repentant, defeated, and broken men. I gave both of them a proper scolding. This will never happen again. Midden stands before him, his head bowed in a show of respect for the hunter's formidable, quiet strength. We've been tight on money lately. I guess they got jealous when they saw you. He turns to the men, his voice sharp and demanding as he orders them to make amends. You too apologize already. Sorry. Tyran looks at Midden, his expression softening as he recognizes the familiar weight of financial struggle. Are things that hard? We've just been limited. He listens as the man explains their plight, his hand clenching slightly at the mention of the debt. In about 3 days, I don't think we'll be able to pay the room fee. But that's our problem. Tyran reaches into his coat, pulling out the pouch of coins and offering it to the man. Here. Midden stares at the pouch, his eyes wide with shock as he processes the unexpected, generous gesture. Why? This is repayment for the kindness you showed before when you said you were worried and tried to bring me along. Tyran smiles, his voice calm and steady as he delivers the final, sobering truth of the world. How did you know? There's no such thing as free. He leans in, his eyes bright with the promise of valuable, hidden and long sought-after knowledge. Give me some information. Information is what I'm best at. I'll tell you everything I know. The city stretches out beneath the morning sky, a maze of stone, wood, and desperate hidden lives. Tyran stands on the edge of the forest, his gaze fixed on the horizon as he prepares to leave. This might be my last hunt in this city. He walks into the trees, his mind processing the new, vital details provided by his former companion. Midden gave me information about the next city, so it's about time I left for there. Tyran pauses, his thoughts turning to the man who had shown him such unexpected, genuine, and rare kindness. There was a lot more useful information than I expected, and Midden really is a good person. He reflects on the comparison, his eyes narrowing as he considers the different paths of his mentors. He doesn't feel as seasoned as Kjorn, but that just makes him purer and kinder. Tyran stops, his body tensing as a sudden, sharp, and familiar scent drifts through the thick air. He inhales deeply, his nostrils flaring as he detects the metallic, unmistakable, and haunting stench of blood. This smell. Please let my hunch be wrong. He sprints through the forest, his movements a blur of speed as he pushes himself to the limit. Tyran reaches a tree, his hand brushing against the bark where deep, jagged, and fresh claw marks remain. He stands in the center of the clearing, his eyes scanning the shadows for the source of the carnage. A body lies slumped against the trunk, a pool of dark, thick blood spreading across the forest floor. This person. Tyran approaches the fallen figure, his face grim as he recognizes the familiar, torn, and bloodied clothing. Isn't he from Midden's group? He kneels beside the man, his eyes searching for any sign of life in the pale, shattered face. A hand lies open in the dirt, the silver coins scattered around it like offerings to the dead. The forest is silent, the trees standing as witnesses to the sudden, brutal, and tragic end of a life. What in the world happened, Midden? The morning mist clings to the forest floor, obscuring the grim scene where life has recently departed. What in the world happened, Midden? Tyran kneels beside the fallen man, his heart heavy as he surveys the carnage left behind by the beast. He stands amidst the silent trees, the weight of the tragedy pressing down on his weary, burdened shoulders. Tyran stares at the mangled remains, his pulse quickening as he realizes the identity of the lethal predator. A rabbit. The white-furred beast sits amidst the gore, its crimson eyes glowing with a primal, insatiable hunger for blood. Tyran pivots sharply, his instincts screaming as he prepares to engage the creature in a desperate, final struggle. Mana surges around him, crackling like lightning as he launches himself into the air to evade the incoming strike. Tyran gasps, his eyes widening as he narrowly dodges the blur of white fur and razor-sharp claws. It's fast. He lands gracefully, keeping his gaze locked on the monster as he calculates its next lethal, swift movement. I almost got hit. Tyran extends his hand, weaving complex patterns in the air to manifest a shimmering, protective barrier of light. He releases the spell, sending a concentrated bolt of energy streaking toward the creature with devastating, pinpoint accuracy. Tyran watches the beast deflect his attack, his brow furrowing as he recognizes the creature's advanced defensive combat techniques. This one's used to defending against thrown weapon techniques. Tyran focuses on the creature's glowing eyes, sensing the immense, dark pressure radiating from its compact, lethal frame. Tyran lunges forward, his blade flashing in the dim light as he strikes at the heart of the beast. He watches the creature recoil in agony, its high-pitched screech echoing through the dense, suffocating forest canopy. K-kikiki-kiak. Tyran channels his remaining mana, unleashing a torrent of force that shatters the surrounding trees into splintered, jagged debris. Smoke rises from the impact site, veiling the battlefield in a thick gray haze that obscures his vision entirely. Tyran emerges from the dust, his breath ragged as he surveys the broken, lifeless body of his formidable opponent. K-kikiki-eek. Tyran stands over the carcass, his mind racing as he contemplates the strange, unnatural strength of the fallen creature. He reaches out, feeling the residual energy lingering in the air as he begins to absorb the leftover mana. Tyran shudders, the sheer density of the absorbed power overwhelming his senses and pushing his limits to the edge. The amount of mana being absorbed is different. It's more than that leopard monster I encountered the first time. He stares at the fallen man, his voice trembling as he realizes the gravity of the situation unfolding here. I can't believe this. Tyran looks down at the dying man, his expression softening as he identifies the source of the mysterious energy. You're a wizard. He nods slowly, his gaze lingering on the blood-soaked ground as he prepares to hear the man's final words. Yeah, why are you hiding your identity? Tyran listens intently, his heart aching as he hears the desperate plea for a family he will never see. Do any of the four that you have a family that I can pass your belongings to? No. He watches the man's life fade, the word boss lingering in the air like a ghost of a lost life. Boss. The scene shifts to a warm, dimly lit tavern where memories of the past begin to surface clearly. There's a great city nearby called Orem. It has a place called a library. Tyran sits across from Midden, his curiosity piqued by the mention of the legendary, vast repository of knowledge. A library? They say it has thousands of books. He smiles faintly, his interest piqued by the prospect of uncovering secrets hidden within those ancient, dusty pages. The moment I say books, you finally look interested. Do I? Tyran leans forward, his focus sharpening as he learns about the exclusive, restrictive nature of the city's grand library. But I heard not just anyone can enter the library. Then how do I get in? He listens to the explanation, a clear understanding dawning on him. Apparently only wizards are allowed in. I see. Tyran stands up, his resolve hardening as he makes the decision to pursue his destiny in the great city. I've decided. What do you mean? He walks toward the horizon, his silhouette fading into the distance as he leaves the forest behind forever. I'm going to that great city you mentioned, Orem. Midden. Tyran pauses, casting one final, solemn look back at the graves of those he could not save today. I hope you're happy there. The sky brightens above the bustling, stone-paved streets of the city, signaling the start of a new, uncertain chapter. Tyran walks through the crowded gates, his presence drawing curious glances from the busy, wary inhabitants of the city. He sighs, feeling a strange sense of irony as he reflects on his previous, misplaced shock at smaller towns. I'm almost embarrassed that I was shocked by the small city of Mure. The city of Orem stretches out before him, a sprawling, magnificent metropolis of towering spires and intricate, beautiful gardens. Great city Orem. Tyran observes the long, winding line of travelers, his brow furrowed by the unexpected, heavy security presence at the gate. I didn't think there'd be this many people trying to enter the city. He advances slowly, his eyes scanning the guards who stand like statues, watching every move with cold, suspicious intensity. Tyran wonders about the purpose of the rigorous inspection, his hand resting instinctively on the hilt of his weapon. Are they screening for wanted criminals? He nods to himself, acknowledging the efficiency of the city's administration as he continues to wait his turn patiently. As expected of a great city, it's got a more established system. Tyran stops as a guard blocks his path, his expression calm despite the sudden sharp command echoing around him. Halt, halt. He looks at the guard, his voice steady as he questions the reason for being denied entry into Orem. What is it? No entry. Tyran glances down at his travel-worn clothes, realizing how out of place he looks amidst the city's polished, refined elite. I've never seen clothes that filthy. You should go over there and at least dust yourself off. The Grand Library looms in the distance, a massive tower entwined with ancient, pulsing vines of magical living energy. Tyran gazes up at the structure, his awe palpable as he finally stands before the place he sought so long. So this is the library Midden talked about. He feels the immense, crushing weight of the mana permeating the air, his heart racing with excitement and deep respect. It's overwhelming. It must have been built with magic, right? Tyran approaches the heavy, ornate doors, his voice polite as he addresses the two guards standing watch outside. Excuse me, HM. He states his purpose clearly, his eyes fixed on the guards as he waits for their inevitable, skeptical response. I'm trying to enter here. This is a library only wizards can enter. Tyran asserts his identity, his tone firm as he refuses to be turned away from his goal today. I'm a wizard. What? He listens to the guard's outburst, his patience wearing thin as he faces the man's blatant, insulting disbelief. Do you want to die for impersonating a wizard? I can't believe I'm seeing a lunatic like you. Tyran remains composed, his gaze steady as he prepares to prove his power to the arrogant, narrow-minded guard. There's no way someone like you is a wizard. He raises his hand, allowing a faint, ominous glow of mana to bleed from his fingers into the air. Tyran speaks with authority, his voice echoing as he explains the silent, universal language shared between all true wizards. Wizards can recognize each other. By sensing the other's mana, they can even tell whether the other person is stronger than them. He focuses his energy, his eyes flashing with a cold, intense light that pierces through the guard's fragile, shallow defenses. Tyran unleashes a wave of raw, suffocating killing intent that forces the guard to his knees in sheer, absolute terror. He watches the guard collapse, his body trembling as the overwhelming pressure of his power crushes the man's spirit. Gah! Tyran lowers his hand, his expression returning to a calm, indifferent mask as he addresses the panicked, fallen guard. Are you all right? I'm fine. He hears the guard's frantic thoughts, his reputation as a formidable, high-class wizard now firmly established in the man's mind. He's no ordinary wizard. This man is at least noble class or higher. Tyran listens as the guard introduces himself, his posture relaxed as he maintains his air of mysterious, untouchable power. I'm Kenya, a knight of House Voltas. May I ask which house you're from? He smiles enigmatically, his voice smooth as he deflects the question with a simple, direct, and challenging counterinquiry. Do I have to say to enter? No. Tyran nods at the guard's explanation, his mind already calculating the next step to gain access to the library. To use the library, you need permission from the Master of Voltas. Meaning, he sighs, his patience tested as he realizes the bureaucratic hurdles he must overcome to achieve his ultimate goal. I'll contact House Voltas. All right. Tyran reflects on the unexpected complexity of his task, his eyes reflecting the flickering, warm light of the room. I thought this'd be a simple process. He stands silently, allowing the servants to attend to his needs as he prepares for his meeting with Voltas. Tyran sits in the luxurious bath, his thoughts wandering as he contemplates the strange turn of events today. How did this happen? He stops the servants with a sharp, firm gesture, his tone leaving no room for further unwanted, intrusive assistance. Stop. Why, yes, sir. Tyran questions the necessity of their presence, his voice calm yet commanding as he dismisses the anxious, worried maids. Is it a problem if I wash by myself? If we fail to properly attend to an esteemed guest, we'll be punished. He relents, his sigh barely audible as he allows them to stay and continue their work in silence. Do what you want, thank you. Tyran watches the maids, his expression unreadable as he observes their genuine, overwhelming awe at his presence and appearance. Wow, amazing. He notices one of the maids covering her mouth, her eyes wide with a mixture of embarrassment and sudden realization. What? Ah. Tyran touches his face, his gaze sharp as he wonders what could have possibly caused such a strange reaction. Is there something on my face? He listens to the maid's stammering apology, his heart unmoved by the hollow, sycophantic praise of his physical beauty. I think I momentarily lost myself because of your beauty, esteemed one. Please forgive me. Tyran dismisses her concerns with a wave, his tone cool as he maintains the distance between himself and them. There's nothing to forgive. Please don't speak to us so casually. He stares at his reflection, his eyes narrowing as he notices a small, peculiar detail that he had previously ignored. Wow, what's this? Tyran turns as a new presence enters the room, his posture shifting into a stance of alert, guarded readiness. He looks at the newcomer, his eyes meeting the gaze of a girl who looks at him with blatant, challenging curiosity. So you're the guest who showed up looking like a beggar. Tyran listens to her sharp tongue, his expression remaining neutral as he assesses the threat posed by this girl. After washing up and dressing you, you look like a prince. Why, young lady, you shouldn't say that. He introduces himself with a calm, steady voice, his posture relaxed as he waits for her to reveal herself. I'm Tyran. I'm Azella. Tyran deflects her question about his lineage, his tone polite but firm in its refusal to share personal details. What house? For personal reasons, it's difficult to say. He watches Azella, his eyes tracking her every movement as she circles him like a predator stalking its prey. Is that so? That's a shame. Tyran senses the shift in the atmosphere, his instincts warning him of a prank being prepared by the girl. Hiding who he is? Then maybe I'll play a little prank. He stands his ground as Azella releases a sudden, blinding surge of mana that fills the room with heat. Tyran observes the flames dancing in her eyes, his pulse steady as he prepares to face her magical challenge. Show me. He channels his own hidden power, his eyes locking with hers as he prepares to reveal his true strength. Your mana. Fiery magic erupted around Tyran, forming a dazzling halo that pulsed with raw power, casting his form in a luminous glow. His eye flared with an intense, crystalline blue, crackling with arcane energy as he prepared to unleash a devastating spell. A powerful aura of contrasting blue and orange magic enveloped both Tyran and Azella, swirling around them in a vibrant dance of elemental forces. Azella's guard quickly leaped forward, shielding the maids from the impending impact. Kaya. Tyran offered a faint, satisfied smile as the magical echoes subsided, while Azella's lips curved upward in a subtle expression of awe. Wow. Azella held her hands up, a playful glint in her eyes as she surveyed the aftermath of the magical display. Tyran turned his head slightly, his gaze falling upon Azella with a curious, almost amused expression. Hey. She leaned in, a mischievous grin spreading across her face as she boldly posed her unexpected question. Want to marry me? Tyran, as was often the case with beautiful women's flirtations, simply stared blankly. Tyran blinked, a bewildered expression crossing his face as he processed Azella's sudden and surprising proposal. What was that? Azella burst into laughter, waving her hands dismissively at his reaction. What's with that reaction? It was just a joke. She then leaned in conspiratorially, her smile hinting at deeper intentions. Still, think about it once. The seat next to me is empty right now. Tyran looked away, a thoughtful expression settling on his features, his mind clearly preoccupied by something deeper than the jest. His hand trembled slightly, a subtle tremor indicating the lingering magical energy or an internal reaction to the recent events. Tyran observed his hand, a sense of wonder and perhaps concern in his gaze as he contemplated the raw power he had just witnessed. She has mana on par with mine at the very least. Is this level normal? A lavish office, adorned with rich wood and golden accents, stretched before Tyran as he stood respectfully before a grand desk. The Lord of Aurum, Rugvalas, a distinguished man with an air of authority, sat behind the desk, addressing Tyran with a welcoming tone. Welcome, young noble. You already know my name, yes. Tyran met his gaze, introducing himself with a calm and steady voice. The Lord then inquired about his purpose. I'm Tyran. Tyran? So you want to use the library? The Lord leaned forward, his expression serious as he began to explain the common misconceptions about the library. A lot of people come here after hearing strange rumors, so I'll say this in advance. Tyran calmly stated his lack of interest in such rumors, prompting the Lord to continue his explanation. I'm fine with that. I never wanted anything like that. If you still want it, I won't stop you. In any case, there's nothing inside that counts as confidential information related to our house." The Lord concluded their conversation, suggesting Tiran rest for the day. Outside, the city of Orem stretched under a bright sky. "It's gotten late today, so rest and come back tomorrow. I won't forget your kindness." Tiran approached the grand, ornate doors of the Sky Library, two bowing men ushering him inside with respectful greetings. "Your entry pass has been confirmed, esteemed guest. Welcome to the Sky Library." His eye widened in silent awe as the vast interior of the library was revealed before him, a world of knowledge awaiting. Wow! A towering shaft of light pierced down from above, illuminating a magnificent spiral staircase that descended into the depths of the library. Tiran stood at the base of the grand staircase, his gaze fixed on the endless rows of books that lined the distant walls. The vast library stretched out, filled with ancient tomes and quietude, as Tiran stepped further into its hallowed halls. "So this is the library." Tiran turned to see a figure approaching him, a cheerful voice breaking the silence of the immense space. "Nice to meet you, Tiran." A young girl, the librarian, stood before him, her long black hair framing a bright smile as she gestured enthusiastically. "I'm the librarian here." She beamed, her demeanor friendly as she prepared to outline the regulations for using the esteemed library. "By order of the Lord, I'll explain the rules for using this place." Tiran looked surprised by her youthful appearance as she quickly listed the first few rules. "The rules are simple. A little kid is the librarian. First rule, if you damage anything, you compensate. Second rule, no taking books out." He gently pushed her back, a slight frown on his face as he expressed his discomfort with her close proximity. "Oh, and while you're using the library, I'll be watching you the whole time." "All right. But when I'm reading, could you stand a little farther away? I feel uncomfortable." The library's expanse surrounded them, its shelves filled with countless stories, as Tiran inquired about the librarian's own knowledge. "If you're a librarian, you've read the books here too, right?" The girl responded with confidence, eager to assist him in his search for knowledge. "Yes. If you need something, finding it for you is what I'm best at." Tiran remained silent for a moment, contemplating his request, while the girl continued to suggest various genres. "What do you want? Romance? History? Or, since you're young, something erotic?" He finally articulated his true desire, seeking fundamental knowledge about the world, leaving the girl momentarily surprised. "I want to learn basic common sense about the world." Tiran listened as the girl explained the age of the books, suggesting a specific section might be more suitable for his needs. "A lot of the books here are hundreds of years old, so they won't really suit your needs." The girl presented him with a stack of books and Tiran expressed his gratitude. She replied cheerfully, "But this section might help a little. Thank you. You're welcome." Tiran carefully took a book into his hands, his expression one of quiet contemplation as he prepared to delve into its contents. He held the ancient tome, its cover etched with mysterious symbols, and then slowly opened it, revealing the knowledge within. "So this is what a book is." His gaze was fixed on the pages, a profound sense of wonder washing over him as he absorbed the information. Tiran looked up, a soft smile gracing his lips as he voiced his amazement at the sheer depth of knowledge contained within the book. "It's amazing." Tiran settled into a consistent routine, spending his days immersed in the library's vast collection, diligently reading and absorbing knowledge. The world's knowledge unfolded before him, revealing its intricate geography, diverse races, and the complex tapestry of its existence. Intricate details of wizard etiquette, manufacturing processes, and the history of ancient empires became clear, enriching his understanding of the world. Ancient relics and formidable monsters from a bygone era were unveiled through his studies, and Tiran closed his eyes, internalizing all he had learned. His understanding deepened with each piece of knowledge he accumulated, transforming his once unknown world into a vivid and comprehensible reality. The Lord of Orem, Rug Valas, observed Tiran, a hint of approval in his voice as he acknowledged his diligent use of the library. "So you really have been making excellent use of the library." Tiran affirmed his statement, and the Lord continued, explaining the nature of his generosity. "Yes, I trust you understand that, separate from treating you as a noble, allowing you to use the library is an act of goodwill." The Lord then revealed his expectation of reciprocation, indicating that he sought a form of payment for his goodwill. "I would like to receive payment for that goodwill. Please tell me what you need." He began to describe a pressing issue, a monster attacking travelers north of Orem, disrupting the region's safety. A monster has appeared north of Orem and has been attacking travelers. Tyran inquired if he was expected to hunt the creature, while the Lord grimly recounted the fate of previous attempts. So you want me to hunt it? 4 knights who went to subjugate it never returned. They were eaten. The Lord sighed, explaining the limitations of his house's forces and the necessity of a noble's intervention. It seems a noble will have to step in personally, but our house can only mobilize 2 people at the moment. Please tell me what you need. Tyran accepted the task with a resolute expression, acknowledging his duty as a wizard to protect the people. Very well. Protecting people is what a wizard ought to do. He pondered the situation, a sense of unease creeping in as he questioned the involvement of wizards in such matters. However, something feels off. Aren't wizards usually the type who don't get involved in things like this? The Lord clarified the urgency of the situation, emphasizing the importance of the blocked northern trade route for Orem's economy. The northern road they've blocked is an important trade route for Orem. It's already been blocked for 10 days, so we have to open it quickly. Tyran's expression hardened as he realized the Lord's true motives, understanding why access to the library had been so readily granted. 10 days ago. That was before I even arrived in Orem. So that's why he let me use the library so readily. The city gates stood open, allowing a small group of people, including knights, to depart into the open fields beyond the walls. Aisla stretched her arm towards the sky, a sigh escaping her lips as she commented on her father's unusual actions. Father really is something else. She walked alongside a group of knights, including Tyran and a young man named Marvin, expressing her disbelief at being mobilized for a monster hunt. To think he'd even mobilize a guest for a monster hunt. Their footsteps echoed on the stone path as Aisla continued to voice her thoughts, questioning their perceived unreliability. Were we that unreliable? Aisla waved a hand dismissively, clarifying that her comments were not directed at them, but rather at her father's overreaction. Oh, I'm not blaming you. I'm just saying Father is making a huge fuss. Marvin, a young man with a cheerful demeanor, smiled at Aisla, gently chiding her for her remark about the Lord. Isn't calling the Lord fussy a bit much, young miss? Drop it. Aisla glared at Marvin, her irritation clear as she clenched her fist, silencing his playful retort with a sharp what. Marvin turned to Tyran, offering a polite introduction and expressing his anticipation for their collaboration. Tyran reciprocated. This is our first time meeting properly, isn't it? I'm Marvin Vallas. I look forward to working with you. Likewise. Aisla walked ahead, her movements swift and determined, as Tyran and Marvin followed, discussing the task at hand. Let's finish this quickly and go back to rest. Marvin leaned towards Tyran, a playful smirk on his face as he asked a rather personal question. Tyran quickly denied it. Tyran, are you interested in my big sister by any chance? Pardon? No. He let out a sigh of relief, a wide smile spreading across his face at Tyran's negative response to his inquiry. That's a relief. The forest path grew darker, its shadows deepening as the group came to an abrupt halt, their attention drawn by a sudden cry. Stop, stop. The dense woods surrounded them, a broken wagon wheel and scattered debris marking the scene of a recent attack. A chilling silence hanging in the air. 2 men, knights from the Orem household, knelt by the wreckage, discussing the possible culprit and the circumstances of the attack. Is that the creature? Probably. We forbade anyone from going north from our side, so they must have come south and got attacked then. Tyran observed the scene, his expression thoughtful as he considered the implications of the monster's presence in the area. A knight pointed to a distinct handprint on a piece of shattered wood, identifying the attacker with certainty. It's a monkey. Tyran pointed to the handprint, explaining his deduction to Aisla, who stood behind him with a puzzled expression. A monkey? Look at the handprint here. He looked into the dense forest, suggesting a plan to track the creature. It looks like it attacked the peddlers and went back into the forest. If we find the trail and pursue it, we should be able to find it. Aisla expressed her inability to track, turning to Marvin for assistance, who also admitted his limitations. Pursue it. I can barely use that kind of magic. Marvin, what about you? Me neither. Is there a knight who can? Tyran knelt, examining the ground with a focused intensity, offering to take on the tracking himself. I'll try looking. He wiped his hands with a cloth, responding to Aisla's surprised question about his tracking abilities. Oh, are you from that bloodline? I use it a lot, so I'm used to it. Tyran closed his eyes, concentrating his senses, preparing to cast a powerful search spell to locate the elusive monster. Search. Tyran pointed decisively into the forest, indicating the direction of the monster's trail. This way. The forest trail led them to a winding river, its clear waters reflecting the dappled sunlight, where the monster's tracks abruptly ended. It stops here. The flowing water of the river sparkled under the sun, concealing any further traces of the creature. Looks like it washed its body. Aisla's eyes widened in disbelief, questioning whether a mere beast could exhibit such cunning to evade pursuit. You're saying a mere beast did that to avoid being tracked? Tyran looked thoughtfully at the river, offering a more mundane explanation for the creature's actions. Maybe it just washed because it wanted to. Tyran's voice cut through the air, a sharp warning directed at Aisla and Marvin, who stood unaware of the approaching danger. Behind you. A monstrous roar tore through the silence as a massive ape-like creature with glowing red eyes lunged from the shadows, its fangs bared. Keek! A knight screamed in terror, desperately urging his comrades to evade the beast's sudden, brutal assault. Get out of the way. The beast unleashed a devastating attack, sending knights flying backward with bloody impacts, their bodies mangled by its immense power. Unag! A knight cried out in agony, his body brutally struck by the monster's relentless assault, the forest echoing with his pain. Aisla and Marvin stood there, unmoving and cold, having used their clan's knights as human shields. Truly ruthless. Tyran watched the carnage unfold, a fleeting sadness crossing his face as he recalled his mother's words about this world. Mother wasn't wrong. Aisla screamed, her voice filled with urgency and determination, rallying the remaining forces against the monstrous threat. Attack! A knight shouted, his voice filled with alarm as the monster suddenly turned and fled into the deeper parts of the forest. Woo-ki-ai-ki-ai! It's running. The beast, a blur of motion, dashed through the trees, its speed surprising as a voice urged pursuit. Chase it! A knight cursed, realizing the futility of their chase as the monster vanished quickly into the dense foliage. Damn it, it's too fast. Aisla watched the creature disappear, her frustration evident as she realized they were losing track of their target. We're losing track of it. Damn it. Suddenly, a surge of magic shot past Aisla. It pierced through the entire group chasing the monster. No one, not even the monster, could react to the magical surge as it swiftly struck the monkey-like beast. The creature shrieked in pain as a powerful blue light pierced its chest. Only then did everyone realize it was a stone. Kai-Keek. Everyone, startled, turned to look behind them. Tyran stood calmly over the defeated monster, the sling still spinning in his hand. A faint, golden aura swirling around his hand, the forest now quiet in the aftermath of the battle. The forest canopy swayed gently in the breeze, filtering sunlight onto Tyran's serene face, the battle's intensity replaced by a quiet calm. Tyran stood there silently, saying nothing, yet the aura he exuded was one that no one could underestimate. The monster wasn't fully defeated. It was still struggling, desperately clinging to life. Aisla raises her hand, her eyes flashing with a fierce, burning intensity as she prepares her spell. Die. Flames erupt from her fingertips, swirling into a serpentine construct that roars with a primal, destructive heat. The explosion engulfs the clearing, casting long, flickering shadows over the stunned group of knights watching nearby. Tyran observed the entire process, realizing it was a rare opportunity to witness the power of a renowned mage family. So that's the bloodline ability of the pyromaniacs from the Voltas family. The tension dissipates as the group catches their breath, the silence of the forest returning to haunt them. Phew, it's over. Aisla brushes her hair back, a playful smirk touching her lips as she addresses the young man. Wow, I got chills for a second while the rock was coming at us. Marvin glanced at her, his expression unreadable as he retorted to her teasing remark. Were you scared? Shut up, you were the one who screamed like a little girl. The injured soldiers groan on the ground, their pained voices echoing through the clearing as they seek aid. Ugh, I think my arm's broken. Anyone got spare bandages? This guy's head keeps bleeding, what do we do? Tyran surveyed the injured knights, his gaze hardening as he realized the senseless cost of the recent battle. What a mess. I guess we're lucky there are no casualties. Tyran thought to himself, unable to forget the image of Aisla and Marvin using the knights as meat shields for themselves. Yes, it was a surprise attack by a monster, but this was a battle where we could have avoided even serious injuries. Tyran sighs, his eyes narrowing as he considers the cruel reality of how these soldiers treat their subordinates. Considering your body gets stronger based on your mana, they should be several times tougher than the knights. and yet they didn't hesitate to use people weaker than them as shields. Aisla looks at him, her brow furrowing in confusion at the sudden shift in his demeanor. Shem, what is it? Tyran shakes his head, turning away to hide the flicker of doubt crossing his calm, stoic features. No, it's nothing. Aisla gestured toward the fallen beast. More importantly, come absorb the mana. The group gathered around the carcass, the air thick with the lingering scent of ozone and burnt earth. Tyran extended his hand, the mana flowing from the beast forming a swirling emerald vortex that began to draw the energy outward. He watches the light dance between his fingers, his thoughts drifting to the ancient texts he studied. Yeah, just like the book said, even if multiple people absorb it at once, the degree of enhancement doesn't seem to get reduced. Aisla steps back, her breathing ragged as she feels the overwhelming surge of power finally reaching its peak. I can't absorb anymore, this crappy growth limit of mine. I'm at my limit too. Tyran observes her struggle, his mind calculating the potential hidden within her unique and powerful magical lineage. Now I get why Father sent him along with us. That level of spell proficiency and a mana capacity that rivals mine. While Aisla and Marvin had reached their limits, Tyran continued. Perhaps he's a noble who hasn't even reached his growth limit yet, Aisla said. The golden hour light bathes the castle gates in a warm glow as the party finally returns home. Marvin wore a weary but appreciative smile for their successful mission. Come to think of it, if it weren't for Tyran, we would never have defeated it. From the tracking ability to landing the hit that knocked the monster down, it was your attack that did it. Tyran waves off the praise, his tone humble as he deflects the credit for their recent victory. Please, it wasn't anything spectacular. Marvin shook his head, his eyes widening as he recounted the strange encounter they had earlier today. If anything, I regret noticing it too late and letting it get the first strike. I didn't think it would have a search ability as well. Tyran pauses, his brow furrowed in deep thought as he analyzes the monster's peculiar evolved magical traits. It had a search ability? Yes. It seems like different abilities awaken depending on the monster's external traits. He gestures toward the path ahead, his voice calm as he explains his theory to the others. The monkey we killed had big hands and big eyes, but it looked nothing like its original form. It probably awakened an ability to throw things with great force and the ability to see far away or to see through the forest. Marvin stared at him, mouth agape in genuine shock at the depth of his analytical knowledge. Wow, I can't believe you figured out all that in such a short time. Tyran smiles faintly, his eyes reflecting the setting sun as he reveals his secret source of information. Actually, I looked through a monster encyclopedia at the library earlier. Marvin laughed, his voice booming through the quiet courtyard as he dismissed the idea of studying there. The library, that stuffy place? No one goes there. I went in once a long time ago out of curiosity, but it was filled with difficult books, so I left without even reading half a volume. Tyran offers a piece of advice, his expression thoughtful as he considers the untapped resources available there. Next time you get the chance, ask the librarian if there are any easy books. Marvin looked puzzled, his brow knitting as he tried to recall anyone working in that dusty, forgotten hall. The librarian? Was there even someone like that in the library? The ancient library tower stands tall against the twilight sky, its windows glowing with a soft, ethereal light. Tyran steps into the silent, book-lined chamber, his footsteps echoing against the cold stone floor as he enters. Welcome back, Tyran Tilda. He sighs, his mind drifting to the risks he took by revealing his identity to a stranger. I was careless. No knight or commoner would ever call a noble by their name. In this city, the way you address a noble is only using esteemed one. The mysterious librarian sits amidst the stacks, her dark hair cascading like a shadow over her shoulders. And besides, the way that she looks doesn't exactly scream librarian. Tyran approaches her, his gaze intense as he demands an explanation for her strange, intimate knowledge of him. How do you know my name? She smiles, a chillingly knowing expression that makes the air in the room feel suddenly heavy and cold. You only noticed now. Tyran watches her, his hand resting on his sword hilt as he waits for her next move. As I thought. I learned it from your permit. She waves her hand, causing a book to float through the air as she demonstrates her strange power. As long as it's around this library, my gaze reaches anywhere. Tyran stares at the floating tome, his curiosity overriding his caution as he asks about her identity. How should I address you then? She drifts closer, her form flickering like a candle flame in the drafty, ancient, and silent library. "I don't really have a name, so call me whatever you want." Tyran considers her words, a small, wry smile touching his lips as he makes his final decision. "How about something cute like my love Tilda? In that case, I will use librarian." She pouts, her eyes narrowing as she teases him about his sudden, stiff, and formal change in demeanor. "You're so stiff. It's awkward when you suddenly get polite after using me for days, calling me to do this and that." Tyran steps back, his face flushing slightly as he tries to maintain his composure against her playful advances. "I never did that. Don't come so close. It's a bit burdensome." She floats toward the ceiling, her movements fluid and unnatural as she answers his earlier pointed question. "Are you a wizard from the old empire?" "No, I wasn't a person to begin with. I'm kind of a spirit, but it suits me right." Tyran watches her, his eyes wide as he realizes the true, ghostly nature of the entity before him. When a soul inhabits something living, it becomes a living spirit. When it inhabits something neither alive nor dead, it's a spirit. She gestures to the walls, her voice echoing with the weight of centuries of stored, forgotten human knowledge. "In other words, the library itself is me." Tyran listens, his mind racing to comprehend the implications of her existence as the guardian of knowledge. This form is just for comfortable communication. Basically, it's the user's preference, though your preferences are kind of. She laughs, her voice light and airy as she dismisses his judgment with a wave of her hand. "Don't make stuff up, but it's true that I'm like a reflection in water." Tyran remains silent, his fingers pressed against his chin as he contemplates the strange, ethereal woman before him. He reaches out, his hand passing through the cold, shimmering mist that constitutes her physical, magical form. She gasps, her eyes widening in surprise as she recoils from the unexpected contact with his warm hand. "Where are you touching?" It feels weird. Tyran pulls back, his expression apologetic as he realizes he crossed a boundary with the spectral librarian. "I apologize. You have no idea how annoying it is that I can't directly exert power on an intruder." She sighs, her voice filled with a lingering, ancient frustration at her inability to defend her sacred home. "If I could, I would have punished every last bastard who carelessly took books out of the library." Tyran looks around the vast, empty hall, his heart heavy with the realization of her profound, lonely existence. "It seems House Voltas doesn't know you exist." "No, maybe it's everyone who's ever used this library." She smiles sadly, her form glowing with a soft blue light as she explains her hidden, lonely purpose. "That's because until now, there was no one with the qualifications to perceive me." Tyran steps closer, his curiosity piqued as he wonders what makes him different from all the others. "My creator made it so only those whose type is complete beyond a certain level could see me. So only you can see me, I guess? Pretty romantic, isn't it?" He blinks, his mind reeling as he tries to understand the complex magical terminology she just used. "What do you mean by type?" "It's what wizards call bloodline." Tyran looks at her, his voice trembling as he asks the question that has haunted his entire life. "Could you tell me about my bloodline? You should ask your parents about that. I'm an orphan." She looks at him, her eyes softening as she offers a way to uncover his long-hidden, mysterious past. Then I can check it for you. All I need is your consent to examine your body." Tyran freezes, his face turning bright red as he processes the implications of her bold, sudden request. "Examine my body." She giggles, her eyes glinting with a mischievous, playful light as she floats closer to him once more. "Heh, Tilda, is this really how it's done?" Tyran yelps, his body jolting as a sudden, sharp surge of magical energy connects them in the air. "Whoa." She smiles, her hand resting against his chest as the connection pulses with a warm, steady, rhythmic light. "Wow, we're connected, Tilda, don't say weird things. It doesn't hurt, though." Tyran watches the light, his breath hitching as she begins to reveal the secrets of his hidden heritage. "There are a few small bits, but the big chunks are the pursuer and hunter bloodlines. Was that a trait of House Zahar?" "Yes." She gasps, her eyes widening as she discovers something unexpected and profound hidden within his complex magical core. Oho, there's one more." Tyran leans in, his heart pounding as he waits for her to identify the final, mysterious, locked component. "It was mixed." "What's mixed?" She looks at him, her expression serious as she explains the rarity of his unique, dual-natured magical blood. "It means you're the result of two people with different bloodlines." "Then what's the other one?" "I don't know either. It's still locked." Tyran nods, his mind processing the revelation that his potential is far greater than he ever dared imagine. A locked bloodline isn't that rare in bloodline combinations. As you grow stronger, it'll open naturally. I see. He stares into the distance, his eyes darkening as he remembers the faint, loving memory of his mother. Mother. She was far too polite and educated to be a commoner. Tyran sighs, his heart aching as he realizes the truth about the woman who raised him in poverty. Maybe she was a descendant of some noble, a bloodline so diluted it couldn't even hold night-level mana. He bows his head, his voice filled with gratitude for the answers she provided in this quiet sanctuary. All right. I understand more or less. Thank you. If you're grateful, stay 1 month. Tyran sits at the table, his eyes scanning the ancient pages as he begins his long, arduous research. Learning the true identity of the library spirit, Tyran didn't continue reading alone. He kept asking about the contents of books and requesting explanations. So there are really that many invisible substances. She hovers beside him, her finger tracing the air as she conjures a sphere of water for him. The librarian even knew knowledge contained in books that had been plundered from the library and vanished over the past thousands of years. That's right. If you make water float in the air, shape it like this, and then look through it, you'll be able to see it directly. Tyran watches the water, his eyes wide with wonder at the simplicity of the scientific principles revealed. Having the laws of nature taught to him in plain words was a treasure beyond measure. He observes the microscopic world within the droplet, his mind expanding to encompass the vast, hidden truths. He learned that all kinds of diseases arise through such microorganisms, and that the decay of living things is caused by the feeding of such germs. Tyran experiments with his mana, his focus sharpening as he applies these new, groundbreaking, and logical theories. Not only that, he grasped basic principles, too. Like the refraction of light, he manipulates the energy, his hands steady as he creates a small, controlled spark of intense, focused heat. The generation of heat through friction, and the process of how living things get injured and how they heal. Tyran looks at the apple on the table, his expression determined as he prepares for his first experiment. Let's start by experimenting with decay. He touches the fruit, his mana pulsing as he accelerates the natural process of time and biological breakdown. The apple shrivels, its skin turning dark and withered as the decay consumes it in a single moment. Tyran smiles, his eyes bright with the thrill of discovery as he realizes the power of his knowledge. How is it? It's incredible. It's not something that existing magic can't do, but just understanding the principle makes you consume far less mana. He closes his eyes, his mind reflecting on how this new perspective has fundamentally changed his magical potential. Simply changing the way he perceived the world raised his skill as a wizard. Tyran looks at her, his voice thoughtful as he questions the motives of the great, powerful noble houses. Maybe some powerful houses are monopolizing knowledge like this. If every wizard knew it, they'd lose their competitive edge. She nods, her expression grim as she acknowledges the truth behind the stagnation of the world's magical knowledge. No wonder people's level of knowledge keeps dropping as time goes on. Now I kind of understand why. The library tower looms in the morning light, its ivy-covered walls standing as a silent, ancient, and lonely sentinel. It's about time I should leave. She drifts toward him, her form trembling as she realizes her only companion is about to depart forever. You're leaving? Yes. The owner of this place has been openly giving me hints to go. She lunges forward, her spectral hands grasping at his cloak in a desperate, frantic, and tearful plea. Nuo, take me with you. Tyran stumbles back, his eyes wide as he tries to disentangle himself from her sudden, overwhelming, and clingy embrace. Hupe. He looks at her, his expression firm as he explains the impossibility of taking a library spirit away. Can you even leave this place? No, can't you just stay here? I'll take good care of you, ha-ha-ha. I'll pass. She pouts, her form flickering with frustration as she watches him prepare to leave her behind once more. HMPH, you're not ever going to say you'll stay. Tyran smiles, his voice gentle as he offers her a final, comforting promise before he begins his journey. This land has a lot of the gods' legacy, so go look around once in a while. Maybe among them there's a spirit who might know even more than I do. He turns toward the heavy iron door, his hand resting on the latch as he prepares to leave. I'll come visit from time to time. She watches him go, her gaze lingering on his retreating back as the heavy door swings shut slowly. Come if you want or don't. Tyran looks back one last time, his smile genuine as he carries the wisdom of the ages forward. He walks into the bright, open world, his heart light with the promise of all he has yet to learn. Don't worry, there are still so many books I haven't read yet. Sunlight warms the stone path as Tyran walks through the bustling city, his mind focused on his goal. According to the continental map I got from the library, he studies the map, his eyes tracing the path toward the distant, arid, and dangerous lands of Zahar. House Zahar's base, Emerald Desert, is east of Orem. Tyran adjusts his pack, his stride purposeful as he leaves the familiar city behind for the unknown path. I'll head to Zahar. He looks toward the horizon, his resolve hardening as he prepares to uncover the truth of his origins and find clues about my parents. That's it for today's video. Thanks for hanging out till the end. If you enjoyed the ride, smash that like button and subscribe to support Manhwa today. Most importantly, show some love to the original creators by reading on official platforms. Catch you in the next one and see you in our future videos. Peace.